Chapter 593. The three customers at the table in the corner of the tavern were all women. Although they had deliberately made themselves ugly, people with discerning eyes could still see their true appearances. Without a doubt, these three women's beauty was top-notch. All three of them had a relationship with Li Daochong, but it was reasonable to say that they didn't have much interaction with each other. At most, they could be considered as acquaintances. At this time, they appeared together in the Black Prison. If Li Daochong saw them, he would definitely feel that it was very magical. The three women were Huang Jiran, Yi Feiyue, and Goddess Hong Yang. In the Black Prison, such a combination was very easy to be targeted by some evil cultivators with bad intentions. It was even very likely that they would be taken away in public. Goddess Hong Yang's strength was considered a top master in the Shenghua Federation, but here, it could only be considered okay, and not be a deterrent. The strange thing was that the three women had been sitting in the tavern for a while, but no one dared to disturb them. On the contrary, many customers who approached them immediately looked away after casting a greedy look. They didn't dare to look at them for a long time, showing an inexplicable fear. There was nothing special about the cultivation of the three women. Huang Jiran was the weakest and was only in the middle stage of foundation establishment. After falling in love with Li Daochong, she cultivated desperately, hoping to catch up with Li Daochong. Unfortunately, Huang Jiran's talent was very limited. After 2 years of relying on a lot of cultivation resources, she only reached the middle stage of foundation establishment. Yi Feiyue had been studying at Shenghua University for a while. Due to the stimulation of her family's forced marriage, her cultivation was almost torturous. In addition, she had good talent and received a lot of spirit stones from Li Daochong. Yi Feiyue's progress was leaps and bounds, and she also had a place in Shenghua University, which was full of strong people. Now Yi Feiyue was already in the middle stage of Jindan. This speed of progress was considered first class in the Shenghua Federation. Goddess Hong Yang was at the peak of Yuanying, and her combat power was comparable to the early stage of soul formation. However, even though Goddess Hong Yang was not weak, she was still not strong enough in the Black Prison. The safety of female cultivators in the Black Prison was much lower than in the outside world. If they wanted to show their faces in public, there were only two situations. Or, if you're powerful enough, you're basically at the mid-divine transformation stage or above. That way, there won't be many people who dare to provoke you. Even if they were more powerful than him, they would still have to think twice. After all, once a cultivator reached the soul formation intermediate stage, the quality of their trump cards would be completely different. If they weren't careful, they could easily fail miserably. Other than that, even if you had a powerful background, no one would dare to provoke you. The strength of Goddess Hong Yang, Huang Jiran, and Yi Feiyue were obviously not outstanding enough. Moreover, they were not cultivators from the Black Prison, so it was impossible for them to have any backers. However, none of the customers in the tavern dared to provoke them. Those customers who had drunk 3 rounds and were clearly drunk also turned a blind eye to them. The reason was the clothes that the three of them were wearing. They were wearing the 1,000 gauze clothes that were unique to the 1,000 Yin sect. The female cultivators of the 1,000 Yin sect were the only group of female cultivators in the Black Prison that no one dared to provoke. Their appearance had greatly improved the living conditions of the female cultivators in the Black Prison. This made it so that those greedy demonic cultivators would not be so brazen. The 1,000 gauze clothes were intimidating enough to make all demonic cultivators shrink back. The strength that the demon sect had displayed in their fury made all the demonic cultivators and ghost cultivators in the Black Prison realize how terrifying the 3 heads of the demon sect were. The 1,000 Yin sect was not inferior to the demon sect. Senior Hong Yang, is Big Brother Li really here? Huang Jiran asked with an indifferent expression. I'm not very sure, but Commander Yu Yan and Li Daoyu have an extraordinary relationship. It's very likely that she said he's in the Black Prison, so it shouldn't be wrong. Goddess Hong Yang said without much confidence. Yi Feiyue's finger was aimlessly moving around the edge of the wine cup. No one knew what she was thinking. She did not seem to be listening to the conversation between Huang Jian and Goddess Hong Yang. After a while, Yi Feiyue frowned slightly. She raised the wine cup and drank all the spirit wine in one gulp. After drinking, Yi Feiyue picked up the wine pot on the table and immediately filled the cup with spirit wine. She then drank it all in one gulp. Seeing this, Huang Jian asked worriedly, "Big Sister Yi, are you all right?" Yi Feiyue's face was flushed. She glanced at Huang Jian and revealed a drunken smile. "I'm fine. Big Sister Yi is fine. Abandoned by the family, betrayed by the father, and now kicked out of the school. Big Sister Yi has never been better." "Ha! Big Sister Yi, you drank too much," Huang Jian said with heartache. "No, I didn't drink too much," Yi Feiyue said as she poured another cup and drank it all in one gulp. Huang Jian wanted to stop her, but Goddess Hong Yang said, "Jian, let her vent." Huang Jian looked at Yi Feiyue worriedly and sighed. She didn't say anything else. "Senior Hong Yang, if your friend is busy, we can meet again tomorrow," Huang Jian said, afraid that Yi Feiyue's drinking would be bad for her health. The wine on the Black Prison planet was different from the outside world, and spirit cultivators were not used to it. Although it was spirit wine, there were some ingredients fermented by demonic herbs. Not only was the wine strong, it was also very concentrated. "She's already here," Goddess Hong Yang said with a smile as she looked outside the tavern. Murong Zhu, dressed in a thousand gauze dress, walked in with several female disciples of the Thousand Yin Gate. When she saw Goddess Hong Yang, she immediately smiled. Many customers in the tavern avoided looking at her, afraid that they would anger this group of fiendish Yin female cultivators. "Hong Yang, after so many years, you haven't changed at all," Murong Zhu said with a smile as she looked at Goddess Hong Yang. "Aren't you the same?" Goddess Hong Yang said as she stood up. Murong Zhu glanced at Huang Jian and Yi Feiyue and said, "It's not convenient to talk here. Come with me." Goddess Hong Yang nodded and pointed her finger. Yi Feiyue, who was still drinking, suddenly felt her vision go dark and she lost consciousness. Huang Jian supported her, and a female cultivator from the Thousand Yin Gate supported her as well. The group of female cultivators left the tavern together. During the whole process, the customers in the tavern were silent. They didn't even dare to breathe. Only when the thousand gauze dress disappeared did the tavern gradually return to its noisy state. Murong Zhu brought Goddess Hong Yang and the other two to a tavern operated by the Thousand Yin Gate in the Black Prison City. Yi Feiyue's acupuncture point was hit by Murong Zhu, so she couldn't wake up for a while. She would occasionally mumble a few words. Huang Jian sat by the bed and looked at Yi Feiyue with a pained expression. The two of them had known each other since they were young, but they didn't interact much. Although Huang Jian was on the Scarlet Sun Star and Yi Feiyue was on the Blue Bay Star, the Huang family also had people working in the Blue Bay Star. Therefore, Huang Jian often went to the Blue Bay Star with her father when she was young. The Yi family had quite a bit of influence on the Blue Bay Star. They ran several cultivation companies and had a lot of dealings with the local government. Huang Jian and Yi Feiyue were both direct descendants, so they naturally attended some banquets and got to know each other. However, the two of them only knew each other and didn't interact much. This time, they appeared together in the Black Prison. They were both in the same situation and were forced into marriage. Huang Jian was forced into marriage not long ago on the Kangwu Star. At that time, she even saw Li Daochong at the miscellaneous Treasure Street auction. However, they lost contact after that. Huang Jian was forced to marry Jiang Ronghua, but this guy mysteriously disappeared a few days later. No one knew if he was alive or dead. The entire Jiang family emigrated and disappeared without a trace. Huang Jian thought that with the Jiang family disbanded, her forced marriage would come to an end. Who would have thought that Huang Yuelong wouldn't give up? For the sake of his career, he found another rich husband for Huang Jiran. This time, Huang Jiran couldn't take it anymore and directly escaped. Huang Jiran grew up in a greenhouse. Moreover, the Huang family had always been an official family, so she actually had very few true friends. After escaping, Huang Jiran found that she had nowhere to go. The only person she could think of was Big Brother Li. However, Huang Jiran's wristwatch was seized by her father, so she couldn't contact Li Daochong. Therefore, Huang Jiran came to the Blue Bay Star. This was Li Daochong's hometown, so there would be a lot of clues. Huang Jiran didn't know many people in the Blue Bay Star, and Yi Feiyue was one of them. Huang Jiran used the last sound-transmitting talisman she had and tried to contact Yi Feiyue. In the end, she really managed to contact her. After meeting her, Huang Jiran found that Yi Feiyue's situation was even worse than hers. Yi Feiyue wasn't supposed to be in the Blue Bay Star. She should be studying at St. Hua University. However, half a month ago, Yi Feiyue was harassed by someone and got into a fight. As a result, Yi Feiyue seriously injured the other party. She was then punished and suspended from school for a year. The more Yi Feiyue thought about it, the more she felt that something was wrong. Later, she received an anonymous sound-transmitting message telling her to obediently go to the Black Tortoise Star. Otherwise, there would be no place for her in the Federation. Only then did Yi Feiyue realize that she had been framed, but she couldn't do anything about it. Yi Feiyue returned to the Blue Bay Star, but she couldn't return to her family. Therefore, she secretly stayed in Li Daochong's old mansion until she received Huang Jiran's sound-transmitting message. After Yi Feiyue learned that Huang Jiran was looking for Li Daochong, she decided to follow her. The two of them went to the Li family. However, the Li family was no longer the same as before. Not only were they like the sun at high noon on the Blue Bay Star, but they were also beginning to stand out in the entire four-ring star zone. The Li family's head, Li Tianyang, had broken through to the Yuanying stage not long ago. This immediately raised the status of the Li family by a knot. Many members of the Li family had rapidly improved their strength during this period of time. Jin Dan cultivators were emerging one after another. The other families on the Blue Bay Star simply couldn't compete with the Li family. Due to the appearance of Yuanying cultivators, Li Tianyang had submitted an application to upgrade the cultivation planet of the Blue Bay Star to the central government. Once the application was approved, the Blue Bay Star would become the only third-class cultivation planet in the four-ring star zone. When Yi Feiyue and Huang Jiran went to the Li family, they didn't see Li Tianyang. He was in seclusion. The person who received them was Li Daochong's younger sister, Li Qingyao. However, she didn't know where Li Daochong was, and she couldn't contact Li Daochong either. If Li Qingyao didn't know where he was, then naturally, no one else would. After leaving the Li family, the two women were in a dilemma. The Federation was so big, who knew where Li Daochong had gone? In fact, after Yi Feiyue came back, she tried to contact Li Daochong, but she couldn't send a sound transmission. Li Daochong seemed to have disappeared from the Federation. However, Yi Feiyue soon thought of Yu Yan. Back then, under Li Daochong's request, Yu Yan sent Yi Feiyue, who had broken off relations with her family, out of the Blue Bay Star and to St. Hua University. Yi Feiyue had Yu Yan's contact information. After a few attempts, Yi Feiyue successfully contacted Yu Yan. This time, the two women directly got on a bus to the Black Prison. Yu Yan was arranging for goddess Hong Yang to go to the Black Prison. Firstly, she wanted to do something, and secondly, she wanted to find Li Daochong. Recently, Qin Zhan couldn't wait any longer. Li Daochong had promised him to be the instructor of the Dragon Teeth. However, so many days had passed, and Li Daochong hadn't taken up the position at all. Only goddess Hong Yang knew a little about the possibility that Li Daochong might go to the Black Prison, but she wasn't very sure. However, regardless of whether Li Daochong was in the Black Prison or not, goddess Hong Yang wanted to go to the Black Prison anyway. Yi Feiyue and Huang Jiran volunteered to go to the Black Prison with Goddess Hong Yang. The latter knew Li Daocheng's temperament very well. If she could find him with his two friends, it would be much better than appearing alone. Therefore, Goddess Hong Yang brought Yi Feiyue and Huang Jiran together to the Black Prison. /3_M Chapter 594. Inside a room in the backyard of the Thousand Yin Gate Inn. Murong Zhu curiously looked at Goddess Hong Yang as she checked Yi Feiyue's pulse. She only relaxed after confirming that there was nothing wrong with her. Murong Zhu curiously asked upon seeing Goddess Hong Yang's concern for the two young female cultivators, "Are they your disciples?" Goddess Hong Yang shook her head and said, "No. No? Hong Yang, we haven't seen each other for over 100 years. This isn't like you back then." Murong Zhu looked at her old friend with a strange expression. Goddess Hong Yang couldn't be bothered to explain and simply replied, "They're a friend of mine." A friend of a friend? Could it be that they're your dual cultivation partners? Murong Zhu and Goddess Hong Yang had formed the Ice Phoenix and Ice Luan duo on the border battlefield. They had slaughtered their enemies in all directions, causing their enemies to tremble in fear. Once they did, they would leave no one alive. There were times when Murong Zhu couldn't bear to kill them, but Hong Yang didn't show any mercy. At the time, Murong Zhu believed that Hong Yang was the goal she was pursuing. She hoped that she could become like her one day. When had Hong Yang ever been so concerned about someone? Murong Zhu couldn't remember such a scene. Murong Zhu didn't believe that a person's personality could change so drastically. The only possibility was that these two female cultivators had extraordinary origins, or they had a deeper relationship with Hong Yang. For example, they could be her dual cultivation partners. Dual cultivation partners? Shoo, I can't believe you can think of something like that. I don't have any dual cultivation partners. I'm just a good friend with unfathomable strength. Goddess Hong Yang rolled her eyes at Murong Zhu. Although the two sisters hadn't seen each other for over 100 years, they didn't feel unfamiliar with each other. Instead, they quickly found a tacit understanding of each other. Unfathomable? To be able to make such a powerful beauty like you describe him as unfathomable, this lady is actually very curious about this good friend of mine. This person is guaranteed to be at the early stage of deity transformation, right? Murong Zhu said with interest. I'm not sure, but I'm sure that soul formation initial stage cultivators won't even be able to withstand a single attack from him. Goddess Hong Yang's eyes narrowed as her thoughts drifted back to what had happened on 13 Specter a few months ago. Even an early divine transformation stage cultivator can't withstand a single attack? Murong Zhu revealed an expression of disbelief. All right, I'm not here to chat with you. Why did your Thousand Yin Gate suddenly want to cooperate with our Shenghua Federation? Goddess Hong Yang didn't want to dwell on this topic, so she changed the topic. Murong Zhu smiled slightly. The Gate Master wants to expand the scope of our business and open up a new path. He doesn't want to stay in the Black Prison forever. Goddess Hong Yang stared at Murong Zhu, trying to read something from her old friend's eyes. However, she didn't receive much valuable information. The Thousand Yin Gate was one of the three giants of the Black Prison. Their strength was enough to compete with the entire Shenghua Federation. The Thousand Yin Gate didn't have any land or citizens. They didn't even have an independent cultivation planet. The entire sect only had tens of thousands of members, and only a few thousand of them had great strength. Compared to the Shenghua Federation, the Thousand Yin Gate was just an ant. However, the Thousand Yin Gate had void refinement cultivators, while the strongest cultivator in the Shenghua Federation was only at the late divine transformation stage. Theoretically speaking, void refinement cultivators were enough to sweep through the entire Federation. Numbers were useless. However, the strength of a cultivation country didn't just depend on the strength of the cultivators themselves. It also depended on cultivation technology and weapons of mass destruction. As for who was stronger between the Thousand Yin Gate and the Shenghua Federation, it was actually very difficult to determine. The Thousand Yin Gate definitely wasn't a match for the Shenghua Federation in a head-on battle. The Shenghua Federation had a talisman above level 20, which was enough to kill a void refinement cultivator or a powerful spiritual nuclear weapon. However, the Shenghua Federation was too big of a target. The Thousand Yin Gate could break into smaller groups and break through as they pleased. Void refinement cultivators and peak divine transformation cultivators could enter and exit the Federation as if they were entering a no-man's land. The Thousand Yin Gate was equivalent to an extremely sharp hidden weapon, while the Shenghua Federation was a huge cultivation war chariot. After Mu Jiaojiao deduced that the demon sect was very likely to rely on Hades, Qian Yueling had the intention to change the battlefield. No matter how strong the Thousand Yin Gate was, they were just an ant in front of Hades. They could be crushed easily. No matter what, Qian Yueling couldn't watch the Thousand Yin Gate that she had painstakingly built be destroyed just like that. Naturally, she had to find a way out as soon as possible. If the worst-case scenario didn't happen, the Thousand Yin Gate would continue to be held in the Black Prison. Once the worst-case scenario happened, the sect would have a way out and would be able to move very quickly. The reason why they chose the Shenghua Federation was because this was Qian Yueling's hometown. She was born here and was kidnapped and sold to the Black Prison when she was 20 years old. Murong Zhu and goddess Hongyang had fought side by side in the past. With this layer of relationship, the Shenghua Federation was naturally the best choice. What do you want to do? Goddess Hongyang continued to ask. The Thousand Yin Gate doesn't have any advantage in terms of cultivation technology, but their cultivators are very powerful. We can help the Shenghua Federation clear the dead stars outside the Fourth Ring starfield. According to the difficulty level, you can pay us a fee. This kind of deal is simple and practical. You can develop more cultivation planets, and we can earn spirit stones. It's a win-win situation. Murong Zhu went straight to the point. Goddess Hongyang obediently fell into deep thought. What? Can't we do that? Murong Zhu saw that Goddess Hongyang didn't reply for a long time and asked. Goddess Hongyang Lu Mei stirred slightly and said, We really can't. The Federation has no precedent of accepting outside forces. The Thousand Yin Gate has at least 30 to 40 soul formation cultivators, and the Federation has no more than 5. The Thousand Yin Gate should have 2 or 3 void refinement cultivators, but the Federation doesn't. If we let you enter the Federation, the resources will be occupied by you in an extremely short period of time. It won't be beneficial to the Federation at all. Murong Zhu listened carefully to Goddess Hongyang's words and said, The reason why the Shenghua Federation has been going downhill in recent years is because they are unwilling to accept outside forces. They have closed the country and occupied the resources. However, have you ever thought that we will also bring the resources of the Black Prison into the Federation? Goddess Hongyang shook her head and said, The resources of the Black Prison will only completely disrupt the original order of the Federation. The resources here are filled with killing, demonic cultivators, and ghost cultivators. If the cooperation you speak of is what you just described, then I think we don't need to continue talking. Murong Zhu stared at Goddess Hongyang and fell silent for a while. The two of them looked as if they were going through a war without gunpowder. Finally, Murong Zhu's expression softened and she continued, What if the Thousand Yin Gate is still willing to assist the Federation in resisting the Hades? This time, it was Goddess Hongyang's turn to fall silent. The Federation's military strength was indeed very tight. If they had the help of powerful cultivators like the Thousand Yin Gate, the Federation's strength would increase by leaps and bounds. There was even a slight possibility that they would counterattack the Rakshasa state. The benefits did seem to be great. However, The individual strength of the 1,000 gate was far greater than that of the Federation's cultivators. If they were allowed to enter the Federation as they pleased, it would be very difficult to guarantee that they wouldn't usurp power in the future. When that time came, the big shots in the central starfield wouldn't be able to do anything to them. If it was purely for the sake of the citizens of the Federation, then there wouldn't be any problems. The stronger the country, the safer it would be. However, the big shots who stood at the center of the Federation's power would definitely not agree to this. This was because if 30 to 40 soul formation cultivators were to enter the Federation at once, the power structure within the Federation would instantly collapse. No power would be able to resist the 1,000 gate. There was no way to open this door. The corners of Goddess Hong Yang's eyes twitched. Murong-Zhu, you've always been very good at drawing big pancake. You know what people want, but I didn't expect you to still be like this. The big pancakes you draw are indeed very tempting, and I'm indeed tempted. However, you've neglected one point. You're talking to a national machine now, not an individual. I can't make the decision. I only came here to see you to understand the situation. Murong-Zhu smiled faintly. It's fine if you can't make the decision. You can let someone who can make the decision to negotiate. Alternatively, the 1,000 gate can send people to the Shenghua Federation. We'll put forward our ideas, and you can also have your request. Naturally, both sides have to be satisfied. I've already conveyed the 1,000 gate's intentions to you. When you go back, you can first inform the Federation's parliament and wait for them to come up with a decision. In order to express their sincerity, the 1,000 gate will purchase an item at the Tianfeng Trade Fair in 3 days. Chapter 595. When perfected Lord 1,000 Yang was mentioned by Murong-Zhu, Goddess Hong Yang's heart skipped a beat. Perfected Lord 1,000 Yang was the most powerful person in the Shenghua Federation, but he hadn't shown his face for almost 200 years. It was rumored that he had been in seclusion. Although the Shenghua Federation had a president and a parliament, these were only the highest authority in the Federation on the surface. The ones who truly controlled the Shenghua Federation were the few soul formation cultivators. Perfected Lord 1,000 Yang was the most powerful person in the Federation, a late-stage soul formation cultivator. Whether it was the president or the parliament, they all had to listen to the soul formation cultivators. In fact, most of the time, the soul formation cultivators in the Federation wouldn't participate in politics. They would either be in seclusion or roaming the world. Soul formation cultivators weren't considered the top cultivators in the Black Prison, but they were almost godlike existences in the Federation. Goddess Hong Yang didn't expect the 1,000 sect, which was far away in the Black Prison, to know so much about the Shenghua Federation. This surprised her, and at the same time, chills ran down her spine. After all, not many people in the Federation knew about perfected Lord 1,000 Yang. Only the higher-ups knew. The 1,000 sect clearly knew who was the one who had the final say. Goddess Hong Yang couldn't help but be curious about the item Murong-Zhu wanted to give to perfected Lord 1,000 Yang. I'll definitely pass on the message. Goddess Hong Yang nodded at Murong-Zhu. That's good. I won't disturb Fairy's rest. 3 days later, I ask Fairy to accompany me to participate in the Tianfeng Trade Fair. At that time, Fairy can also see if there are any items that you need. Murong-Zhu lightly smiled, turned around and left. Goddess Hong Yang's heart was in turmoil as she watched Murong-Zhu leave. What was the 1,000 sect up to? What were they planning? A big question mark appeared in Goddess Hong Yang's heart. The demon sect's search was still ongoing, but it gradually slowed down as time passed. After such a large-scale search, Qi Kuang still did not find any information about Wen Mayan. 5 days ago, the special envoy of the Nether clan, Fiendish Python, came to retrieve the demonic orb as promised. Naturally, he returned empty-handed. The Fiendish Python flew into a rage, scolded Qi Kuang profusely, and almost killed him, 5 days later, the fiendish python once again came to the demon sect's forbidden area, the demon cave. Chi Kuang knelt on one knee. In just a few seconds, his back had been soaked in cold sweat. Chi Kuang's heart was filled with apprehension. If he didn't handle this matter properly, the netherworld race would most likely lose their patience with him. If that was the case, his life would be in danger. If the fiendish python wanted to kill him, Chi Kuang was ready to risk his life, but Chi Kuang had no confidence in escaping from the fiendish python. Chi Kuang, His Highness is very angry with your failure this time. If I hadn't tried my best to recommend you in front of His Highness, you would have been wiped out. The fiendish python looked down at Chi Kuang and said in a deep voice, "Thank you for your kindness," fiendish python exalted. "His Highness, please calm down. Please give Chi Kuang some more time and let Chi Kuang make amends." Chi Kuang bowed his head and cupped his fist. "Since he didn't kill you, isn't he giving you a chance to make amends?" The fiendish python's voice was hollow. He was standing in front of Chi Kuang, but the latter could not tell where the voice came from. "Please tell me, exalted one," Chi Kuang hurriedly said, but in his heart, he heaved a sigh of relief. In any case, his life was temporarily saved. Although His Highness has forgiven you, he has doubts about your ability, so he decided to send me to help you find the devil bead. In addition, His Highness thinks that the Black Prison has been occupied by Ancestor Tianfeng for too long, and it's time to change the owner. The fiendish python continued. Chi Kuang lowered his head and his eyes flashed with surprise. Is the Netherworld clan going to kill Ancestor Tianfeng? It was not so easy to kill a combination stage-old demon. Chi Kuang naturally did not doubt the strength of the Netherworld clan. This was a super ghost clan in the Hades country, one of the 4 Hades countries, and there was a Devil King level Nether ghost in the clan. Even a combination stage cultivator could not withstand one move in front of a Devil King, who was equivalent to a Tribulation stage cultivator. However, although the Netherworld clan was powerful, they could not enter and leave the spiritual world unscrupulously. Because the space in the Black Prison was chaotic, spiritual chi was mixed, and there was also death chi, the probability of triggering the 9 heavens' primordial thunder was very low. This was also the reason why the fiendish python could appear in the forbidden area of the demon sect without any concealment. Of course, there was also a ceiling demon formation in the demon cave, the forbidden area of the demon sect, which had a strong isolating effect. According to the classification of the Hades, the fiendish python belonged to the devil general level, which was equivalent to a peak void refining stage or an early stage combination stage cultivator. Compared with those demons that Li Daochong met on 13 Specter, the fiendish python was half a level higher. In Chi Kuang's estimation, the strength of the fiendish python should be comparable to that of Ancestor Tianfeng. However, even in the chaotic world of law like the Black Prison, the fiendish python still could not be exposed in the space for a long time. Because the devil chi on his body was too strong, if exposed for a long time, it would still attract the 9 heavens' primordial thunder, or cause the chaotic world of law to completely collapse and cause the space turbulence. Therefore, no matter how powerful the Netherworld clan was, it was useless if they could not show up. How could they deal with a combination stage cultivator? Your Highness, your devil body is noble. How can you stay in the Black Prison for a long time? On the surface, Chi Kuang's words were flattering the fiendish python, but in fact, he was asking the fiendish python in a roundabout way how to solve the problem of the conflict of laws and stay in the Black Prison for a long time. The fiendish python narrowed his eyes and said, "Humph, there are many ways to stay in the Black Prison for a long time, but the consumption is relatively large. Do you human tribe really think that Mingma can't appear in the spiritual realm?" With that, the devil chi on the fiendish python weakened rapidly, and the pressure disappeared. Chi Kuang only felt that his body was relaxed. In just a few seconds, the fiendish python's body shrank and was much thinner than before. The black python that had been entwining his shoulder turned into a 3-inch snake and disappeared into his ear hole. The devil robe on the fiendish python's body disappeared, and was replaced by a martial suit, which was the favorite style of the body-refining cultivators. Except that his face was a little gloomy, there was no difference between him and a human cultivator. At this time, the space behind the fiendish python cracked, and 3 devil dwellers came out. If Li Daochong and Cherry Blossom Gauze were here, they would definitely feel familiar. These 3 devil dwellers were the 3 people who went to 13 Specter to catch Cherry Blossom Gauze. There were a total of 4 demonic cultivators on Nether Devil Star, but Demon Blade had been killed by Li Daochong's ingenious plan. The remaining 3, Fail Yen, Black Lotus, and the Giant Man, were blocked behind the Spirit Seed Star Stone. Later, the 3 devil dwellers had to return to the Hades because the time limit of the device to hide Devil Chi was up. Since Chi Kuang joined the Hades, he had only seen the fiendish python from the beginning to the end. He had never seen anyone else. As for the prince of the netherworld mentioned by the fiendish python, it only existed in Chi Kuang's imagination. Fail Yen greets Your Excellency fiendish python. The black-robed man, who was the leader of the 3 devil dwellers, immediately saluted to the fiendish python. The female devil dweller Black Lotus and the giant man also saluted. The fiendish python nodded slightly, and then said to Chi Kuang, 3 days later, the Tianfeng Trading Fair will be held. It will be the time for the Netherworld clan to occupy the Black Prison. Chi Kuang, you should prepare well. Chi Kuang responded with hesitation in his eyes. Finally, he plucked up the courage to ask, Fiendish Python, I have some thoughts, but I don't know if it's appropriate to ask. Go ahead. The Fiendish Python said in a low voice. Isn't it too hasty to attack the Black Prison at this time? Why did you choose to attack the Black Prison at the beginning of the Tianfeng Trading Fair? This is the time when the Black Prison is most powerful. The cultivation companies of the 3 empires will also send many special envoys to shop here. Why didn't you choose another time to attack? Chi Kuang asked. Chi Kuang, I have to ask you this. If the matter of the devil bead didn't fail, why did His Highness do this? The elders in our clan calculated that the devil bead was still in the Black Prison temporarily, but they couldn't figure out where it was. After all, the Hades was too far away from here. The elders also calculated that the devil bead wouldn't stay in the Black Prison for too long, and it was very likely to leave after the Tianfeng Trading Fair. Your demon sect has been searching for a long time, but you haven't found any valuable clues. It seems that you haven't realized the importance of the devil bead to His Highness. To put it simply, His Highness can do anything for the devil bead. The fiendish python's eyes flashed, and there seemed to be a kind of ecstasy in them. The fiendish python hadn't tasted a fresh and powerful soul for a long time. This time, His Highness gave him this important task, which was also a reward for him. After eating this meal, the fiendish python could at least upgrade from the primary devil general to the intermediate devil general. If he could completely devour the ancestor of Tianfeng, it would be enough to make the fiendish python's strength leap to a new level. In the Earl's house of the Black Dungeon City, Wu Chanda stood respectfully in the secret chamber of the Earl's house with 2 protectors, Qi Heian, Xia Shanhu and Long Ernyang. At this moment, the 4 strongest experts of the Count's residence were facing a short man with a small stature. The man was no more than 1.7 meters tall. He wore a simple dark red gown and stood with his hands behind his back. The pressure that was faintly emitted from his body made Wu Chanda and the other 3 feel extremely nervous. It seemed that they might receive a fatal blow at any time. The murderous aura of the short man was so strong that it made people's hair stand on end and breathless. Since the short man appeared, he had his back to Wu Chanda and the other 3. He was looking at an ink painting on the wall of the secret chamber. He was so absorbed in it that he seemed to have forgotten Wu Chanda and the other 3. It was obvious that the short man had his back to Wu Chanda and the other 3, but they felt as if they had their backs to the short man. This feeling was extremely strange. The short man seemed to have some kind of obsessive appreciation of the painting on the wall and looked at it for half an hour. Just as Wu Chanda was getting more and more frightened, the short man finally spoke. Wu Chanda, Lord Dark King is very dissatisfied with your management of the Black Dungeon over the years. Lord Night Soul, Wu Chanda has let Lord Dark King down. I'm willing to be punished. Wu Chanda didn't quibble and directly admitted his mistake. The Demon Sect and the Thousand Een Sect aren't easy to deal with. The focus of the Dark Knight isn't here anyway, and they didn't give you much support. It's actually not bad that you're able to maintain it. However, more than 10 assassins of the Dark Knight have been inexplicably eliminated in the Black Dungeon recently. All of them were done by the Demon Sect. Lord Dark King is extremely angry about this. Do you know why the Demon Sect did this? Night Soul was still staring at the huge ink painting of the Black Dungeon city on the wall. Chapter 596. Wu Chanda was shocked. Although the Earl's house had always been supported by the Dark Knight was still very mysterious to Wu Chanda, and he knew very little about it. Wu Chanda had no idea that the Dark Knight had so many assassins in the Black Prison. The Demon Sect had been wantonly searching for something recently, and they had killed many people and wiped out many forces. The entire Black Prison was in a state of panic because of the Demon Sect. Wu Chanda naturally knew about such a big commotion, but he had no idea that the Demon Sect had killed so many assassins in the Black Prison. Lord Night Soul, according to the reports of the spies in the Earl's house, the Demon Sect seems to be seeking revenge on the Black Prison. It seems that someone has angered the Demon Sect, and it's very likely that when Mayan has been killed, Wu Chanda replied truthfully. Oh? When Mayan has been killed? If that's the case, it's not strange that the Demon Sect has been behaving these days. However, they would rather kill 1,000 innocent people than let one person go. They are too arrogant. The Dark Emperor sent me here to help the Earl's house rebuild its prestige in the Black Prison and let all the practitioners here know that the Earl's house is still the most powerful force in the Black Prison. No matter why the Demon Sect is so crazy in the Black Prison, the assassins can't be killed for nothing. The Demon Sect has to pay the price. Night Soul's voice suddenly turned cold. He stretched out his hand, and the painting on the wall flew down automatically. With a bang, flames ignited in Night Soul's hand, and the painting was instantly burned to ashes. There was a thumb-sized part in the ashes that wasn't completely burned. Night Soul reached out and took the piece of paper with a door drawn on it from the ashes. Then, he turned around. Wu Chanda didn't understand why Night Soul had suddenly burned the painting. Lord Night Soul, is there a problem with this painting? Wu Chanda couldn't help but ask. This painting was personally given to him by the Dark Emperor. This is the Dark Emperor's order. You can mobilize all the assassins in the Black Prison. The Dark Emperor didn't give you this painting for you to see. He gave you the authority to mobilize all the assassins in the Black Prison. This is your guarantee. However, this situation is special, so I can only exercise this authority. Since the Demon Sect wants to play, I'll play along with them. Night Soul's lips curled into a bloodthirsty smile. While speaking, Night Soul's aura fluctuated. Wu Chanda and the other three immediately felt their vital energy and blood churning in their bodies. All of them revealed a horrified expression. Even spatial tempering cultivators like them were unable to withstand the pressure that they felt in that instant. Night Soul was at least at the peak of the void refinement realm or even the form synthesis stage. Wu Chanda knew that Night Soul was very powerful, but he didn't know exactly how powerful he was. It was only at this moment that he truly experienced the terrifying strength of a 4-star assassin. The Sky Peak Trading Fair was getting closer and closer. 3 days passed quickly. Spirit Cultivator City's ancestral spirit pagoda, Li Daochung's Sea of Consciousness, suddenly rang out. Beep. absorbing demonic energy and transforming it into spiritual energy. The host has leveled up to level 29. There was a loud boom. The inner world in Li Daocheng's dantian doubled in size. His primordial spirit also grew a little. It was already close to 2/3 the size of his body. After Li Daocheng obtained the cherry blossom gauze's ghost essence pill and leveled up by 3 levels, the spiritual energy in his body hadn't been consolidated very well. In the past 7 days, Li Daocheng had completely digested all the spiritual energy. However, this wasn't enough for Li Daocheng to level up. What really allowed Li Daocheng to level up was the more than 50,000 beast cores of demonic beast. The pure spiritual energy was given to Yinping, and the remaining demonic energy was absorbed by Li Daocheng. The level of the demonic beasts in the beast-taming sect wasn't considered high, so there wasn't much demonic energy in a single beast core. However, with more than 50,000 beast cores, the capacity was completely different. Even so, this amount of demonic energy wasn't enough for Li Daocheng to level up. This was because after he entered the soul formation stage, the amount of spiritual energy required for each level up was extremely large. Each subsequent level was the sum of all the spiritual energy obtained from the previous levels. The reason why he could level up again was mainly because he was already close to the peak when he reached the early soul formation stage. Otherwise, even if there were 5 million demonic beasts at the same level as the beast-taming sect, it wouldn't be enough for Li Daocheng to absorb. There seemed to be only a slight difference between the peak of the early soul formation stage and the middle soul formation stage, but there was an essential difference. For Li Daocheng, it was even more different. His strength would take a huge leap. When he was in the early soul formation stage, Li Daocheng's combat strength was about the same as the peak of the soul formation stage or the early void refinement stage. When he reached the middle soul formation stage, Li Daocheng could even fight against a late void refinement stage cultivator if he went all out. Li Daocheng slowly opened his eyes. He raised his hands and looked at them. A faint smile appeared on his lips. In 3 years, he had reached the middle soul formation stage. What a terrifying cultivation speed! Not to mention the Federation, there weren't many people like him even in the 3 great cultivation empires. Or was there? 3 years ago, soul formation stage cultivators were unreachable to Li Daocheng. He didn't even dare to think about it. Now that he was in the middle soul formation stage, his combat strength was far above that of a middle soul formation stage cultivator. All this was thanks to the hot-blooded upgrader. Otherwise, even if he risked his life to cultivate, it would be good enough if he could reach the foundation establishment stage. The feeling of having powerful strength made Li Daocheng feel very secure. When he finished his business in the Black Prison, no one would dare to go against him when he returned to the Federation. After a short moment of joy, Li Daocheng's expression became a little strange. In the Black Prison, he had risen 4 levels in a short time. However, he didn't feel the slightest sign of the thunder tribulation. It seemed that cultivating here in defiance of the heavens wouldn't lead to the thunder tribulation. If that was the case, then wouldn't all cultivators above the Yuanying stage be able to break through here? In this way, the danger of breaking through would be greatly reduced. After reaching the Jin Dan stage, every breakthrough was a process of fighting against the heavens and earth. Many cultivators would die in the thunder tribulation. Otherwise, the number of cultivators would at least double. The probability of dying in the thunder tribulation was around 50%. The thunder tribulation was a huge loss to the cultivator base. In fact, the most deaths were not from wars, killings, or disputes between cultivators, but from the thunder tribulation. However, in the Black Prison, the thunder tribulation didn't seem to exist at all. Li Daocheng felt that something was wrong. Li Daocheng didn't believe that a pie would fall from the sky. Even if a pie did fall from the sky, it definitely wouldn't fall twice. The appearance of the hot-blooded upgrader was already incredible. The probability of another pie falling from the sky was absolutely zero. Li Daochong couldn't understand this matter. He could only ask the local cultivators. Other than Li Daochong, Cherry Blossom Gauze and Silver Bottle both had breakthroughs. The former's ghost body completely stabilized and evolved into Wu Ho's true body. Her strength was on par with Li Daochong. Silver Bottle naturally improved the fastest among the three. After all, her cultivation was lower. With Li Daochong's strong support, her leveling speed was naturally frightening. If someone found out that a card slave had cultivated to the yuanying stage, their jaw would drop. Ever since the card slave planet was discovered and colonized, the card slaves became the best slaves in the spirit realm. There hadn't been a powerful cultivator. Before Silver Bottle, the strongest cultivator in the card slave tribe was only at the late stage of foundation establishment. That was already a very impressive achievement. This was determined by the card slave's physique. They were born with a lack of spirit meridians, so their physique was relatively poor. In fact, even Silver Bottle herself couldn't believe that she was already a yuanying stage cultivator. Silver Bottle's current cultivation had already reached Li Daochong's initial expectations. What she needed next was actual combat training. This was the gap that Silver Bottle needed to cross. Li Daochong could help the little girl regardless of the cost. But even if he gave it to her, she had to know how to use it. The gun was very powerful in her hands, but if she didn't dare or didn't want to pull the trigger, then it would be useless. According to the agreed time, the cultivation room's door was punctually opened. When Boyazi saw Li Daochong, the first thing he did was to hand over the upgraded Tsang ink to him. Li Daochong took the Tsang ink. His eyes moved slightly, and the corner of his eyes subconsciously twitched. It was different. It was completely different. The Tsang ink's appearance didn't change much. It was basically the same as before. 3 inches wide, a straight back blade. The tip of the blade was a little wider, and the connecting part of the blade was a little narrower. The blade was one-sided, and the handle was a dragon mouth. The entire blade was over 6 feet long. The appearance didn't change, but the Tsang ink emitted a trace of ice spirit cold air. This aura was very vivid. Li Daochong probed with his divine telekinesis and immediately sensed the ice-type spirit in the Tsang ink. The moment their telekinesis collided, Li Daochong immediately went deep into the spirit's divine telekinesis sea of consciousness. This spirit didn't have a consciousness. It was a spirit without consciousness whose past memories were erased. It was very easy to establish the most basic soul pact with it. The Tsang ink had followed Li Daochong for a long time and experienced countless battles. The blade didn't have a life, but it had a spirit. The Tsang ink had long been Li Daochong's natal magic weapon. After the spirit merged with the Tsang ink, it would immediately be infected and corroded by the Tsang ink. After the two merged into one, the spirit's soul was almost completely absorbed by the Tsang ink saber. Therefore, the spirit in the Tsang ink saber was the Tsang ink saber itself. 1. Li Daochong didn't move, but the Tsang ink saber let out a clear vibration sound. It was as if it was communicating with Li Daochong. "Master, nice to meet you." Just as Li Daochong retracted his divine telekinesis, a voice came from his sea of consciousness. It was very strange yet also very familiar. The voice was ethereal, but it was impossible to tell if it was a man or a woman. "You're Tsang ink?" Li Daochong asked. "Yes, master. I'm Tsang ink." "Ha ha ha, I didn't expect you to be able to survive." "I didn't expect it either. When I followed master to battle, Tsang ink just wanted to do my part. There were a few times when you were in trouble, Tsang ink wanted to take the initiative to help master. However, soulless is only a simple consciousness. It can't control itself at all and can only stare. Tsang ink followed. Being able to converse with his own magic treasure caused Li Daochong to feel extremely novel. Even though immortal treasures all had artifact spirits and could speak, Li Daochong had only heard of them and had never seen one himself. In fact, magic treasures with spirit were real magic treasures. Otherwise, they could only be considered weapons. Master, when you attack in the future, you don't need to control Tsang Ink yourself. I can do it myself. You only need to think and I will know. I have memorized all the cultivation methods. Master only needs to transfer spirit chi to me. Even if the enemy is thousands of miles away, Tsang Ink can move in an instant and kill them. So that's how it is. Li Daochong's eyes lit up. At this moment, he finally understood what was so good about magic treasures. He didn't need to be distracted to control it. He could use the cultivation method wholeheartedly. This way, the power of his attacks would be increased by a lot. Li Daoyu, are you satisfied with this saber? Boyazi waited quietly for a while before asking. Boyazi naturally understood that Li Daochong was communicating with the spirit. Boyazi himself once had a flying sword with a weapon spirit, but in a battle, that flying sword was cut in half, and the weapon spirit died as a result. Very good. Li thanks the city lord. Li Daochong said with satisfaction. It's good that Li Daoyu likes it. The Tianfeng trade fair will begin today. Li Daoyu, according to the agreement, I will have to trouble you for the rest of the day. Boyazi immediately said. City lord, don't worry. Since Li has agreed, I will definitely do my best. This trade fair, spirit cultivation cities, Li will definitely protect it. Li Daochong nodded. Boyazi represents the millions of citizens of Spirit Cultivation City to thank Li Daoyu. Boyazi bowed. The main venue of the Tianfeng Trade Fair was a huge single building outside Black Prison City. This building was called the Black Prison Imperial Palace. 400 years ago, old ancestor Tianfeng spent an astronomical amount of money to invite the #1 architect of the Enkuan Empire, Liu Banzhou, to design and build it. The materials used in the Black Prison Imperial Palace were all Tong Xian level magic gold. There were all kinds of defensive spirit arrays and a very precise force dispersion structure inside. It was said that even if the Black Prison exploded, the Black Prison Imperial Palace would not have any crack. It could withstand the bombardment of an early void refinement stage cultivator and remain as immovable as a mountain. There were also rumors that the Black Prison Imperial Palace was basically a demonic shuttle. When necessary, old ancestor Tianfeng could use the Black Prison Imperial Palace to leave. Rumors were just rumors. After 400 years, the Black Prison Imperial Palace had never moved an inch. It had always been quietly standing outside the south city of Black Prison City. Usually, there was no one here. Cultivators also did not dare to come close for fear of angering old ancestor Tianfeng. More than 100 years ago, there was someone who was curious and came here to explore. He wanted to dig out a piece of magic gold from the outer wall of the Black Prison Imperial Palace to make a magic treasure. In the end, he did not manage to pry open the wall. Instead, he was pierced through the heart by an ice spike. Cultivator Yuanying did not even have time to shout before he was killed by the mechanism. The cold chi in the ice spike directly froze Yuanying into pieces. Since then, no one dared to have any improper thoughts about the Black Prison Imperial Palace. Within a 5-kilometer radius of the Black Prison Imperial Palace, it was common to see many demonic beasts and demonic birds mysteriously die. However, no matter how quiet the Black Prison Imperial Palace was usually, it would immediately become the focal point of the entire Black Prison once the Tianfeng Trade Fair began. From a barren land, it would become the most bustling area. 3 months before the trade fair began, old ancestor Tianfeng's servants would be busy here. They would clean up and set up the venue. The Black Prison Imperial Palace occupied more than 200,000 square meters. The interior was extremely large. Therefore, it was not easy to set it up. Without 3 months of preparation, it would definitely not be completed. The Tianfeng Trade Fair was divided into 3 venues. There was a large venue, a small venue and a high-end venue. Anyone could participate in the large venue. It was also the largest venue. It took up more than 90% of the entire Black Prison Imperial Palace. It was also the venue with the largest trade volume. There would be many large trade orders. However, the rarity of the items would not be too high. The small venue was for divine transformation stage cultivators and above. The trade volume here would not be too high. However, the prices here were frighteningly high. The average price of each item was around 3 million high-grade spirit stones. The high-end venue was even more impressive. The trade volume here only accounted for 1/10,000th of the entire trade fair. However, the high-end venue accounted for 99% of the entire trade fair. The average price of the items here was around 300 million high-grade spirit stones. One high-grade spirit stone was equivalent to 100 middle-grade spirit stones. One middle-grade spirit stone was equivalent to 100 low-grade spirit stones or 1,000 ordinary spirit stones. In other words, one high-grade spirit stone was equivalent to 10,000 low-grade spirit stones or 100,000 ordinary spirit stones. The Shenghua Federation's annual output in the entire cultivation country was around 1 billion high-grade spirit stones. The Shenghua Federation's annual GDP could only buy 2 or 3 items that were not too rare in the high-end Tianfeng trade fair. Chapter 597. The Black Prison was a place where the strong preyed on the weak. The crime rate was extremely high, and one could become the prey of others at any time. There were no cultivation methods here, and it was similar to the ancient cultivation world. As long as you were strong enough, you could do whatever you wanted. Without strength, you would be waiting to be slaughtered. The Black Prison was the most dangerous place in the entire spirit world. But even so, a large number of cultivators poured in every year. These cultivators were neither fugitives nor wanted criminals. In fact, they weren't even devil cultivators. There was only one reason for them to come here: to buy what they wanted. In the Black Prison, there were only things that one could not think of and nothing that could not be bought. This slogan was a classic advertisement that attracted every cultivator who came here. And the Tianfeng Trade Fair was the largest trade fair in the Black Prison. The highly anticipated Tianfeng Trade Fair had already begun to heat up the day before. Today, hundreds of thousands of cultivators had poured in. Some were alone, some were in groups, and some had ominous backgrounds. It was unknown if it was because of their own needs or because they represented a certain power. Devil cultivators, ghost cultivators, and spirit cultivators were all gathered together. There were even Hades impersonators mixed in. In short, the Tianfeng Trade Fair that was held once every 10 years was the grandest gathering in the Black Prison. Patriarch Tianfeng would always make a lot of money at this time. As the host, Patriarch Tianfeng was the only person who would not lose out. Under the lead of Boyazi, Spirit Cultivator City formed a team of 7 and arrived at the Tianfeng Trade Fair. Of the 7 people, only 4 were from Spirit Cultivator City. Other than Boyazi, there was also Xian Lu, Exhilarating, and Xiaoyan. The other 3 were naturally Li Daochong, Cherry Blossom Gauze, and Silver Bottle. Entering the hall, Silver Bottle looked around. A pair of beautiful big eyes looked here and there. In fact, not only Silver Bottle, even Li Daochong felt that it was very novel. He had never seen such a large-scale trade fair before. Cherry Blossom Gauze was also surprised. There were endless stalls and booths, as well as a huge crowd of buyers. How was this a trade fair? It was simply a trading feast. The sounds of haggling could be heard incessantly. Along the way, many people were red in the face because of the price. Some of the cultivators looked as though they were about to start a fight. However, in the end, none of them dared to make a move. All fights were prohibited during the trade fair. If there was a violation, Patriarch Heavenpeak would take action and kill the cultivator who violated the rules on the spot without showing any mercy. Boyazi entered the hall and went straight to the east side of the exhibition area. It took him quite a while to reach his destination. Many cultivators in this area were selling spirit medicines. There was a dazzling array of spirit medicines, too many to count. Other than the usual spirit herbs, there were all kinds of herbs that were not usually seen. Spirit herbs were mainly divided into 4 categories: cultivation-type spirit medicine, healing spirit medicine, recovery-type spirit medicine. There were also spirit medicines with special effects, such as the face-preserving pill, life-prolonging pill, giant strength pill, and so on. Boyazi's goal was very clear. Cultivation-type spirit medicine was his first choice, and he would buy a small amount of healing spirit medicine. Spirit Cultivation City was rich, and Boyazi had chosen almost all the spirit medicines that were rarely produced. As for the genuine pill, Boyazi directly swept through the goods, sweeping through all the main stalls and buying over 1,000 pills in one go. This was almost 70% of the total amount in the entire venue. Boyazi's sweeping actions quickly attracted the attention of many cultivators. One by one, they watched enviously as Boyazi placed many of the cultivation spirit medicines that were usually in high demand into his storage ring. Other than the genuine pill, the nascent soul pill, the young spirit pill, and other sought-after spirit medicines were also swept clean. Boyazi was extremely generous with his spending, and he bought hundreds of tons of healing spirit liquid. Very quickly, Boyazi and his group became the investors of the various spirit medicine dealers in the auction. Many devil cultivators drooled over Boyazi, wishing that they could slaughter this fat sheep on the spot. Boyazi, hasn't Spirit Cultivation City not participated in the Tianfeng Trade Fair for 300 years? What kind of wind is blowing today that actually blew you bunch of cowards out? A hunchbacked old man, surrounded by a few young cultivators, walked in front of Boyazi with a face full of surprise. The hunchbacked old man's words were filled with ridicule, and his pair of old eyes looked at Boyazi with disdain. The hunchbacked old man saw Boyazi from afar, and felt that it was strange at first. Spirit Cultivation City had never participated in any large-scale activities in the Black Prison. The main reason was that this group of spirit cultivators were timid and afraid of trouble. Coupled with their lack of strength, it was Spirit Cultivation City's usual style to not get involved in trouble. This time, the Tianfeng Trade Fair had suddenly appeared, so the hunchbacked old man naturally felt that it was strange. Could it be that Spirit Cultivation City had found some powerful backer? Otherwise, with this group of timid spirit cultivators, it was absolutely impossible for them to come to the Tianfeng Trade Fair to purchase things. Not only was he purchasing things in such a high-profile manner, Boyazi's face was full of confidence. It was obvious that he had something to rely on. However, after the hunchbacked old man observed for a while, he did not see any experts by Boyazi's side. Other than Xiao Yan and a female cultivator, Yuan Ying, the others were all Jin Dan cultivators. Boyazi's own aura was even more pitifully weak. The hunchbacked old man could tell at a glance that Boyazi's primordial spirit was exhausted and did not have much lifespan left. True monarch Golden Fire, this old man's participation in the Tianfeng Trade Fair has nothing to do with you, right? Spirit Cultivator City and your Golden Fire sect have never interacted before. In this old man's opinion, it's better for you to go your own way, and I'll go mine. Let's just pretend that we didn't see each other. After Boyazi finished speaking, he didn't even look at the hunchbacked old man, and led Xiao Yan and the others to another stall. After purchasing things in the big venue, Boyazi still had to go to the small venue to find treasures. That was his main battlefield. At this time, the items he was buying were just some basic items. The items sold in the small venue were the real rare items. Not to mention buying them, even seeing them was rare. True monarch Golden Fire was ignored by Boyazi, and a trace of anger rose in his heart. At this time, a tall middle-aged man appeared behind him. His demonic chi was vast and majestic. He was actually a middle-stage demonic cultivator. The surrounding cultivators consciously opened up a path, afraid of friction with this tall middle-aged man. "Old man Tua, how's the target?" The tall middle-aged man walked in front of True Monarch Golden Fire and immediately asked. "Hey, the fat sheep of Spirit Cultivation City came out to deliver food. If we don't choose them, we'll be letting them down." True Monarch Golden Fire looked coldly at Boyazi's back as he walked away. The tall middle-aged man glanced at Boyazi and touched his chin. "This kind of fat sheep, the more the better. Old man Tua, keep an eye on him. I'll go see if there are any other fat sheep." With that, the tall middle-aged man walked in another direction. Some cultivators who saw him were shocked. "Isn't that True Monarch Rock Puppet?" "Yeah, why is he doing in the big venue? With his level, shouldn't he go to the small venue? I'm afraid the items here are useless to him." "Shoo, you two be quiet. If True Monarch Rock Puppet hears you two, if he's in a bad mood, he can tear you two to pieces." A cultivator at the side reminded them. The two cultivators shrank their necks and nervously looked at True Monarch Rock Puppet's back. After confirming that he didn't notice them, they heaved a sigh of relief. When Boyazi arrived at the small venue, his purchasing speed slowed down. He was no longer as unrestrained as he was in the big venue. The prices of the items here entered another level. The unit of calculation was high-grade spirit stones. Even if there was a high-grade spirit stone vein below Spirit Cultivation City, he couldn't be unrestrained in the small venue. 5-star condensing nascent pill, 4-star golden origin pill, these spirit medicines were exactly the same as the ones Boyazi had bought. The difference was that these spirit medicines were all high-grade, star-grade spirit medicines. After consuming them, the effect would be several times better than ordinary spirit medicines, or even dozens of times better. After reaching 4-star, cultivation-type spirit medicines could greatly increase the probability of breaking through. The highest could increase it by as much as 50%. However, the price of these spirit medicines was shockingly high. A 4-star golden origin pill was sold for 10 million mid-grade spirit stones. Even a soul formation cultivator would feel the pinch. After calculating for a while, Boyazi still bought a batch of star-grade spirit medicines. The small venue had a special reception room and lounge. There was also a reception room where one could browse all the items that appeared in the trade fair. However, there were many items in the trade fair. It would take at least a few days to browse all of them. After Boyazi finished purchasing some of the spirit medicines, the remaining items were rather miscellaneous. If he wandered aimlessly around the venue, he would waste a lot of time. Thus, he chose a reception room to browse through the items. The selection process was very time-consuming. Boyazi said to Li Daochong somewhat embarrassedly, "Li Daoyu, the Tianfeng Trade Fair is held once every 10 years. I think you must have something you need to buy. This old man might need to spend some time to choose the items. If you are interested, you can look around." Boyazi was very considerate, and Li Daochong was planning to go to the high-end venue to see how to sell the devil pill. Even if Boyazi didn't say it, Li Daochong would still be separated from him. "That's good. Li does have something you want to buy. Why don't we meet here in 5 hours? Li Daochong said. "Li Daoyu, go ahead. We will wait for you here." The Tianfeng Trade Fair lasts for 3 days and 3 nights. This time will be no exception. There is no rush, Boyazi replied. Li Daochong nodded and left the small venue with the cherry blossom gauze and the silver bottle. Li Daochong had already used his divine will to scan the entire small venue. There was nothing he needed here. The Black Hell Palace only had 3 floors. The first floor was the big venue, the second floor was the small venue, and the third floor was the high-end venue. These venues were all open to the public. There were no rules about who could enter and who could not. As long as you had spirit stones, you could spend anywhere you wanted. The difference between the 3 venues was the quality of the items sold. Li Daochong arrived at the high-end venue. The atmosphere here was completely different from the lower 2 floors. Although there were no restrictions, there was not a single cultivator below the soul formation stage in the high-end venue. It was as if everyone had formed a tacit understanding and consciously would not enter the high-end venue. The trading format of the high-end venue was completely different from the lower 2 floors. There were no stalls or booths here. The space was not that big, but it was very exquisite and elegant. There was a front desk in the center. Below it sat thousands of cultivators. Everyone walked up to the front desk one by one and took out the items they brought to sell. They showed it to the buyers below. Whoever wanted it could negotiate the price on the spot. After confirming the price, they could trade. If the bargaining took too long, there were many private rooms at the side. Both parties could go in to negotiate while the others continued to display the items. Chapter 598. Li Daochong watched from below for a while and rubbed his chin. He felt that this kind of transaction was pretty good. However, if one wanted to go up on stage, they had to line up. The first to go up, the last to go up, and no one was allowed to cut in line. Li Daochong took out his number plate. On it was the number 739, which meant that he was the 739th to go up on stage. At this moment, he was the 230th to go up on stage. Li Daochong blushed with shame. How long would he have to wait? He might not even have a chance to go up on stage today. However, there was no other way. He could only wait. Li Daochong found a seat in the back where there were fewer people and sat down. However, just as he sat down, a strong wave of demonic qi came from below. Li Daochong's eyes moved. He looked in the direction of the door and saw a short man walking up with a group of demonic cultivators. Li Daochong's spiritual force could not detect the short man's cultivation level. The 4 demonic cultivators behind him were all void refinement cultivators. Terrifying was not enough to describe this lineup. These 5 people could wipe out the entire Shenghua Federation. In the 3 great cultivation empires, such a combination could also do whatever they wanted. Li Daochong felt that it was inconvenient to not have a guide. At this moment, Exhilarating walked up from below. The young girl from Spirit Cultivator City saw Li Daochong sitting at the back with a glance, so she walked straight over. When she arrived in front of Li Daochong, Exhilarating smiled and said, "Senior Li, Grandpa is worried that you are not familiar with the process of the Tianfeng Trade Fair, so he asked me to be your guide." Li Daochong nodded and patted the seat in front of him. "Sit." Li Daochong's left and right seats were silver bottle and cherry blossom gauze. Naturally, there was no place for Exhilarating. She could only sit in front. "Do you know who that short man is?" Li Daochong asked before Exhilarating sat down. Exhilarating had already seen the 5 people when she came up. She glanced at them again and replied, "Mr. Li, I don't know the short man either. The 4 people beside him are big shots from the Black Prison. The tall man is the mansion master of the Earl House, Wu Chanda. The female cultivator is Long Ernyang, the eldest Earl of the Black Dragon. The other 2 people are the 2 protectors of the Earl House, Tian Sha and Di Kuei, Qi Heian and Xia Shanhu. They are all void refinement cultivators." Exhilarating seemed calm as she introduced them, but her delicate body was trembling uncontrollably. If she wasn't in the Black Prison Imperial Palace, she would never have dared to approach these dangerous people. As soon as Exhilarating finished her introduction, another group of people came up the stairs. The leader of the group was a gloomy man in simple martial attire. When Li Daochong's divine sense swept over this person, it was unknown whether the other party had sensed it or if it was just a coincidence, but their eyes actually met. After looking at each other, the man calmly looked away. Exhilarating's delicate body trembled even more violently. When she spoke, her voice was a little hoarse. "They are from the demon sect. Is that person the Devil Master?" Li Daochong asked casually. "No, I don't know that person. Behind him is the Devil Master, Qi Kuang, and the 3 Hall Masters. Xian swallowed her saliva and had the urge to escape. Once the three heads of the Black Prison Imperial Palace arrived, the atmosphere immediately became a little gloomy. The other cultivators felt a little unnatural. The cultivators who went up to the stage to display their items were even more nervous. They were afraid that the demon sect and the Earl House would take a fancy to their treasures. If the people from these two forces were interested in their items and asked for a price, the price they should quote would become a problem. If they quoted too high a price, they would anger them and become enemies. Then, their days would be difficult. If they quoted too low a price and casually sold it, they would not be satisfied. Many cultivators began to be unwilling to go up to the stage to display their items. Some cultivators even left temporarily to hide and wait for the two big shots to leave. Of course, there were also some cultivators with mysterious identities and unknown cultivation levels who did not leave. Most of these cultivators came from the three great cultivation empires. They did not come to the Tianfeng Trade Fair on their own accord. Instead, they represented a powerful cultivation company or a group. This group of cultivators was naturally not interested in the three heads of the Black Prison Imperial Palace. Any of the top 100 cultivation companies in the three great cultivation empires could easily crush the three heads of the Black Prison Imperial Palace. However, although these cultivators were not afraid of the three heads of the Black Prison Imperial Palace, this was their territory after all. As the saying went, a strong dragon could not suppress a local snake. Naturally, these cultivators in the Black Prison did not want to have a conflict with the three heads of the Black Prison Imperial Palace. Therefore, they all maintained an attitude of minding their own business. However, because of this, Li Daocheng's number, which originally had to wait for a long time, was pushed forward at a very fast speed. There were supposed to be 500 people in front of him, but in the end it was number 609's turn to go up to the stage. In the middle, there were at least 300 cultivators who did not go up or leave. The seats at the back were originally empty, but when the demon sect and the Earl's house sat on the left and right of the front row, many cultivators began to move back. Li Daocheng was immediately surrounded. 2/3 of the cultivators sat at the back to maintain a safe distance from the demon sect and the Earl's house. The cultivators who dared to stay were at least in the late divine transformation stage. The cultivator who walked up to the stage was actually a void refinement stage cultivator. This cultivator was quite famous in the Black Prison. His name was Xian who exalted. Divine transformation stage cultivators were usually called true lords, void refinement stage cultivators were called exalted, and body integration stage cultivators were called old ancestors. However, these titles were not fixed. Sometimes, void refinement stage cultivators who were stronger or had higher seniority would be called old ancestors. Under normal circumstances, void refinement stage cultivators would be called exalted. Xian who exalted was not a demonic cultivator, and he did not stay in the Black Prison. However, he would appear in the Black Prison every once in a while to either sell or purchase items. Of course, the exalted healer knew that the Devil's Sect and the Earl's Palace were here. However, this exalted healer, who had an ominous background, didn't seem to care about the two of them. He walked up to the stage and took out the items that he wanted to sell. It was a palm-sized piece of magic gold. When Xian who exalted took out the magic gold, there was not much of a commotion. This piece of magic gold was very ordinary. It was gray and did not have any luster. It looked no different from a normal rock by the roadside. There was also no special spiritual energy wave. The cultivators who could still sit down were all knowledgeable. They had seen all kinds of treasures. Many cultivators used their spiritual will to check the item, but they did not find anything. They lost interest in the item that Xian who exalted brought out. However, when Xian who exalted started to introduce the item, there was a commotion. Everyone, this is a piece of purple mystic stone. I found it by chance in a secret realm in the Kuan Empire a few years ago. When Xian Who Exalted mentioned the purple mystic stone, everyone was suspicious. Purple mystic stone? Xuan Hu Exalted Holiness, are you mistaken? The purple mystic stone is an immortal grade magic metal, which is extremely rare. Magic metal is dark purple in color, so how can the gray thing in your hand be a purple mystic stone? A cultivator asked suspiciously. This cultivator asked the question that was on everyone's mind. Xian Who Exalted was not angry. He smiled and said, "You are right. The purple mystic stone is dark purple and not gray. The reason why the purple mystic stone in my hand is gray is because there is a layer of cold essence rock on its surface. It is also a good catalytic magic gold. This layer of cold essence rock has sealed off all the shapes of the purple mystic stone. Therefore, no one can see the true appearance of the purple mystic stone. You can't even feel a trace of purple mystic essence rock. This also means that the cold essence rock on the outside is very pure. Only a body integration stage cultivator would be able to see the inner structure." Xian Who Exalted, what are you talking about? Who else would have this ability other than Grandmaster Tianfeng? Do you want Grandmaster Tianfeng to identify it? A cultivator said unhappily. Everyone, please calm down. I will not try to mystify things. Since everyone wants to see the truth, I will make a small cut for everyone to identify. Xian Who Exalted said as he took out a small knife. A surge of spiritual energy surrounded the tip of the knife. With a light cut, a bean-sized cut appeared on the gray stone. As soon as the cut was made, a purple light shot out from within. An intense mysterious purple essence chi was released from within. It was really a mysterious purple stone. The cultivators who were not interested in it earlier were shocked. This was the most precious item that had appeared so far. The mysterious purple stone was an immortal-grade magic metal. It was the best material for forging immortal-grade magic treasures. It was also one of the top-grade immortal-grade magic metals. Its value was unimaginable. The mysterious purple stone did not require too much of it. Just a small amount of it was enough to increase the hardness of a magic treasure by a few folds. If such a large piece of mysterious purple stone was used to forge a magic treasure, it would be enough to raise the grade of the magic treasure by a large level. Any random magic treasure would be able to reach the level of a top-grade, immortal-grade magic treasure. At this level, the power of the magic treasure would be extremely terrifying. If it was a flying sword, it would be able to split a cultivation planet in half. Of course, the user would have to be at least a void refinement stage cultivator. Otherwise, it would be difficult to split a planet in half. After confirming that it was really a mysterious purple stone, many cultivators revealed an extremely desperate look. Even the sect master of the demon sect, Qi Kuang, and the mansion master of the Earl's house, Wu Chanda, were somewhat moved. If such a large piece of purple profound stone was added to their transcendent artifacts, their power would increase by quite a bit. However, their purpose for coming here today was not to participate in some trade fair, and the real boss was not them. Even if they were tempted, they could only watch. Li Daochong looked at the purple mystic stone in the exalted Xian's hand, and was quite fond of it. If this item was added to Tsang ink, wouldn't it be able to upgrade Tsang ink to another level? However, Li Daochong didn't have many spirit stones on him right now, nor did he have anything good to exchange. So, he could only give up. Xian Who Exalted, how much are you offering for this purple mystic stone? Someone asked. 500 million high-grade spiritual stones, the exalted Xian Who said. When the cultivators below the stage heard this, they were all suspicious. However, someone quickly reacted and said, Xian Who Exalted, I will give you 600 million for this purple mystic stone. The exalted Xian Who smiled, Dao friend, don't be so hasty. I am not done yet. 500 million high-grade spiritual stones per tale. What? Many people below the stage exclaimed at the same time. Everyone, you don't have to look at me like that. This trade is a matter of mutual consent. I will not tell anyone about the dangers I went through to obtain this purple mystic stone. If it wasn't for my ancestors, I would have died in that secret realm. 500 million high-grade spiritual stones per tale is not a high price. If you think it is too expensive, you can choose not to buy it. Of course, other than spirit stones, I will also accept treasures of equal value in exchange. The exalted Xian Hu continued. The crowd fell into silence. If it was 500 million high-grade spiritual stones, it would be worth it. However, if it was only one tael, it would be too expensive. This palm-sized purple mystic stone weighed at least 5 kilograms. If it was only one tael, it would cost more than 50 billion high-grade spiritual stones. Ck your sister, why don't you go rob a bank instead? Some of the cultivators looked at the exalted Xian Hu's face and cursed in their hearts. Although the purple mystic stone was expensive, it wasn't that expensive. 2 to 3 billion was still acceptable. Those who needed it urgently could at most bid 5 billion. Any higher and it would be beyond the value of the purple mystic stone. I want this purple mystic stone. A dignified female voice came from the direction of the staircase. Everyone looked towards the direction of the voice. They saw the leader of the Thousand Yin sect, Qian Yueling, walking up the stairs with a group of female cultivators wearing the thousand silk dress. Li Daochong exclaimed softly. He saw familiar faces among the group of female cultivators, and there was more than one of them. Why were they in the black prison? Li Daochong's mind was filled with questions. Chapter 599. Li Daochong would never have thought that he would meet Goddess Hong Yang, Yi Feiyue, and Huang Jiaran in the black prison. What was even stranger was why the three of them were with the Thousand Yin sect. They were even wearing the sect robes of the Thousand Yin sect. Li Daochong frowned slightly, feeling puzzled. However, he didn't get up to greet them since the situation wasn't clear. He sat in his seat, completely restraining his aura as he quietly observed the three women's movements. The black prison wasn't a place that anyone could enter. Goddess Hong Yang's arrival was understandable. After all, she had a military position and might need to complete some missions. However, the appearance of Huang Jiaran and Yi Feiyue was a bit strange. One of them was the daughter of a government official and lived a comfortable life. She wouldn't risk her life in such a place. Although Yi Feiyue had severed ties with her family, she was accepted by the University of St. Hua and had a bright future. There was no need for her to come to the black prison. Were they being held hostage? Li Daochong's heart skipped a beat, but it didn't seem like they were being held hostage. If they weren't being held hostage, did they run into some kind of trouble? Countless possibilities flashed through Li Daochong's mind, but they were all just guesses. The three heads of the black prison were all present, and the atmosphere became even more subtle. Li Daochong didn't want to attract too much attention at this juncture. After Li Daochong came out of the ancestral spirit tower, he learned from Boyazi that the demon sect was looking for something. Others didn't know what the demon sect was looking for, but how could Li Daochong not know? When Mayan was missing and the demon orb was missing, the demon sect was looking for Wen Mayan and the demon orb. Li Daochong had a rough understanding of the strength of the three heads of the black prison. The three most powerful demonic cultivators in the black prison were the sect masters of the three heads of the black prison: Qian Yueling, Wu Chanda, and Qi Kuang. The three of them were all void refinement cultivators. Other than Qian Yueling, who was in the middle stage, the other two were in the late stage. With Li Daochong's current strength, he was not afraid of them. However, when the demon sect and Earl's house appeared, Li Daochong felt uncertain. This was because the two unfamiliar cultivators leading the group were very strange. Xian didn't recognize them. The auras of these two fellows were also very strange. Even Li Daochong was unable to determine their exact situation. He could only confirm that their strength was above that of Wu Chanda and Qi Kuang. These two influential figures in the black prison followed behind the two of them and seemed to be very afraid. If these two were at the peak of the void refinement stage or even the body integration stage, then things had become a little tricky. Li Daochong wasn't sure if he could deal with them. The fiend pill was no small matter. Once Li Daochong took it out, it would immediately attract the attention of many people. There was a high chance that the demon sect would associate it with the fiend pill. Given the way the demon sect had been tracking Mayans' whereabouts for the past few days, they would rather kill 1,000 innocent people than let one go. It was very likely that they would include Li Daochong as their target. With Li Daochong's current strength and the cherry blossom gauze, he wasn't afraid. However, it was better to avoid unnecessary trouble. Li Daochong was afraid of the two unidentified cultivators. He vaguely felt that the man who Qi Kuang was following had a hidden aura. This hidden aura seemed to be demonic qi. However, Li Daochong was still not sure. There was a very strange field force on the other party's body that blocked the detection of his spiritual force. Even though Li Daochong's spiritual force was very powerful, it couldn't penetrate it. Just based on this point, Li Daochong had to be careful. His spiritual force was now comparable to a late-stage void refinement stage cultivator. The condensation and thickness of his spiritual force were extremely terrifying. A single thought was enough to kill a soul formation stage cultivator. However, he couldn't penetrate that field force. One could imagine how strong the other party was. Li Daochong really wanted to sell the fiend pill and make a fortune so that he could bring the huge sum of money back to the Shenghua Federation to transform the Blue Bay Star. However, if the risk was too great, Li Daochong wasn't in a hurry. Although the Tianfeng Trade Fair was the top trade fair in the Black Prison, it wasn't necessary to sell the fiend pill here. The current situation was a little complicated. It would be best if he could sell the fiend pill, but it didn't matter if he couldn't. Li Daochong decided to wait and see for now. His attention was more focused on Yi Feiyue and Huang Jiran. The strength of these two wasn't enough to run around the Black Prison. Li Daochong had a good impression of Yi Feiyue and Huang Jiran. The former bought his talisman during his most difficult time. At that time, she helped Li Daochong a lot. Li Daochong would never forget the kindness of providing charcoal in snowy weather. If Yi Feiyue had any difficulties, Li Daochong would be duty-bound to help her. This was his principle. Huang Jiran was a little special to Li Daochong. This girl always reminded Li Daochong of some of the situations on Earth. She was like a little sister next door who had a strong dependence on Li Daochong. Li Daochong wasn't unaware of Huang Jiran's feelings for him. However, Li Daochong felt somewhat helpless about this. This was because he only saw Huang Jiran as a little sister and didn't have any other feelings. Li Daochong had been desperately cultivating since he woke up. As for other things, he basically didn't think much about it. However, it wasn't to say that he hadn't been moved even once. It was just that every time that kind of feeling emerged, Li Daochong would suppress it and not think too much about it. In Li Daochong's view, now was really not the time to talk about love. There was a saying that the greater the power, the greater the responsibility. Li Daochong didn't have this feeling before, but as he became stronger and stronger, he understood the meaning of this sentence more and more. Li Daochong now had a lot of fetters around him. The more fetters there were, the more weaknesses there were. In fact, Li Daochong already had feelings for Yinping. It was just that he didn't express it. The main thing was that this girl's mind was terrifyingly pure. Li Daochong didn't want to add too much to Yinping's troubles for the time being. More than once, Li Daochong imagined that if he expressed his feelings for Yinping, this girl would immediately kneel in front of him and kowtow, repeatedly saying, "Young master, you can't, I'm your servant, you can't like me, you'll be ridiculed by the outside world. Blah blah blah, I'll save a lot of words." Thinking of such a picture, Li Daochong's head hurt. Rather than expressing it, it was better not to say it. Li Daochong turned his face and glanced at Yinping sitting on his left. This girl was concentrating on the cultivator on the front desk, who was spitting and showing the items in his hands. The appearance of each item was a new discovery for Yinping. After reaching Yuanying's cultivation, a door to a new world opened in front of Yinping. The slave mentality that was deeply rooted in this girl's heart seemed to have loosened a little. Looking at Yinping's small face, Li Daochong's lips curled up slightly. It was a good thing that she had loosened up, but when would she be able to think normally? Thinking of the countless arguments he had with Yinping, Li Daochong's head hurt again. Just as Li Daochong was thinking, a sudden exclamation from the crowd pulled him back from his thoughts. True Immortal's soul herb? Did I hear wrongly? Is there really such a thing in this world? That's probably a lie. No one has seen it before. There are only sporadic records in the ancient records. There are no true immortals in this world. Without true immortals, where would the true immortal's soul come from? Without the true immortal's soul, where would the true immortal's soul herb come from? Many knowledgeable void refinement stage cultivators were in disbelief. Many of them spoke out. The high-end venue suddenly became noisy. It was much louder than when the exalted Xian who took out the purple mystic stone. A short old man stood on the stage with a long crystal tube in his hand. There was a 7-colored grass in the tube. Other than that, there was nothing special about the grass. Lord Fiendish Python, is there really a true immortal's soul herb in this world? Qi Kuang asked doubtfully. The Fiendish Python did not answer, but a strange look appeared in his gloomy eyes. The Fiendish Python was not sure if the grass was a true immortal's soul herb, but his demonic thoughts sensed an extremely sweet soul smell. The Fiendish Python's mood was like a dehydrated traveler who had walked in the desert for days and suddenly saw a cup of cool spring water in front of him. The Fiendish Python could barely suppress the desire to eat that had not appeared in his heart for thousands of years. Baidu search 81 Chinese Websitio. No advertising message. Chapter 600. True immortal soul grass, as the name suggested, was a spirit herb that grew under the nourishment of a true immortal soul or a powerful soul. This spirit herb could be added to any spirit herb. Just a little bit was enough to make a spirit herb reach the level of an immortal herb. True immortal soul grass could also be taken on its own, and the effects were just as outrageous. However, this kind of immortal herb only existed in ancient records. It had never appeared in the spiritual realm for tens of thousands of years. According to ancient records, true immortals were true immortals who were even more powerful than Mahayana cultivators. Mahayana cultivators were supreme beings in the spiritual realm, at the top of the pyramid. However, the last 3 Mahayana cultivators of the spiritual realm had disappeared during the catastrophe. No one knew if they were alive or dead. The most powerful cultivators in the 3 great cultivation empires were late-stage tribulation transcendence cultivators. A body integration cultivator had a lifespan of close to 10,000 years, while a tribulation transcendence cultivator could easily live for tens of thousands of years. However, at this level, all the disputes in the world were meaningless to them. Their only goal was to pursue the illusory path of the great Tao. However, the spiritual realm had lived for more than 100,000 years. What was the path of the great Tao? No one could explain it clearly. In the cultivation world of ancient times, the path of the great Tao was eternal life. However, as cultivation continued to develop, cultivators gradually realized that the path of the great Tao was not as simple as eternal life. This was because eternal life did not seem to be a pleasant thing. In fact, it was more like a punishment. If that was the case, then what was the point of pursuing eternal life? To punish oneself? Many cultivators kept thinking about this question, and there were many books on cultivation philosophy. The 3 most famous books were The Great Tao is Not Eternal Life, The Truth of Cultivation, and Will You Be in a Daze After Eternal Life? These 3 books on cultivation philosophy perfectly explained the bewilderment of the cultivators in the Great Cultivation era. However, there was always a push in the dark. The pursuit of greater strength was still the direction that human cultivators yearned for. The invasion of the Hades made this desire a necessity. Otherwise, not only would the individual die, but the entire population would go extinct. This seemed a little off-topic. In fact, if true immortal soul grass really existed, it meant that true immortals existed. At this moment, everyone was looking at the 7-colored grass in the crystal tube in the little old man's hand. If it really was a true immortal soul grass, the entire spiritual realm's worldview would be completely overturned. This was because in the Great Cultivation era, it was generally believed that true immortals did not exist. It was just a beautiful imagination of the ancient cultivators. Humph, that's just a pseudo-true immortal's soul herb. If I'm not mistaken, this spirit herb grew from the body of a tribulation transcendence cultivator or grand ascension stage cultivator who perished for unknown reasons. It's a good thing, but if you say it's a true immortal soul herb, then I can't help but suspect that you're trying to scam me. Is there anything that an old man like you wouldn't dare to do? Just as the cultivators below the stage were craning their necks to look at the stage, an old voice rang out. They could only hear the voice, but could not see the person, nor could they tell where the voice came from. It seemed to resound directly in everyone's sea of consciousness. This was the voice of old ancestor Tian Feng. Many cultivators looked around, trying to catch a glimpse of old ancestor Tian Feng's face, but there was no trace of him in the venue. The old man who was addressed as Old Yuan by old ancestor Tian Feng on the stage rolled his small eyes and revealed an awkward expression. He then chuckled and said, "Senior Tian Feng has good eyesight. This junior doesn't dare to lie. It's just that I haven't finished my introduction. The introduction before was a little exaggerated. It's just that this true immortal soul herb doesn't exist in this world. It's an illusory object. From another perspective, this spiritual herb in my hand is the true immortal's soul herb." Old Yuan was clever. After being exposed, he managed to smooth things over with a few words. He did not anger old ancestor Tian Feng, nor did he make everyone feel that he was twisting words and forcing logic. Old Yuan's full name was Venerable Yuan Shan. He was a mid-void refinement stage devil cultivator. His strength was neither strong nor weak. He was a poison expert and was a permanent resident of the Black Prison. Although this old man had a void refinement stage cultivation, he looked no different from a wandering old man on the street. However, despite old Yuan's sloppy appearance, there were not many people who dared to provoke him. Those powerful forces in the Black Prison did not dare to provoke him easily because this old man had no bottom line. He would do anything. Moreover, he never fought with you openly. His tricks behind your back were endless, making it impossible for you to guard against them. There were countless cultivators who were killed by this old man. Old Yuan, don't dilly-dally. Tell me the price. Qi Kuang saw that the fiendish python seemed to be very interested in this false true immortal soul herb, and said impatiently, "Hee, since Lord Demon Lord is so anxious, this old man will not keep you in suspense. If you want this immortal soul herb, exchange it with the Nether King grass. This old man is refining a strange poison and urgently needs this immortal level poison herb. Whoever has it, this old man will exchange it immediately." Venerable Yuan Shan chuckled. As soon as these words came out, the audience quieted down. There was no Nether King grass in the entire spiritual realm, not to mention the Black Prison. This was a kind of nether demon herb that grew in the depths of the Hades. This thing was not impossible to get, but it was too difficult. Perhaps only tribulation transcending cultivators had a glimmer of hope to get it. Even a combination realm cultivator like Ancestor Tianfeng could not do it. "I'll exchange it with you." Just as the whole venue quieted down, a melancholy voice sounded. Everyone looked at the source of the voice. The one who spoke was a strange cultivator standing beside Chi Kuang. Chi Kuang smiled slightly. Wasn't this a free gift? The nether king grass was naturally very rare in the spiritual realm. It was harder to get it than to reach the sky. But it was different for the fiendish python. He was originally a nether demon from the Hades. His status in Jiryo country was not low. It was not surprising that he had the nether king grass. Oh, you have it? Show it to me. Venerable Yuan Shan showed a touch of surprise. He did not expect someone to have it. Venerable Yuan Shan's breathing was slightly unstable. A pair of small eyes stared at the fiendish python. He could hardly control his desire to get the nether king grass. Venerable Yuan Shan was refining a poison called immortal slaying. Even combination realm cultivators could not resist this poison. Once poisoned, not only the physical body but also the primordial spirit would be quickly infected. It would only take a short 10 seconds from the poisoning to the poison. If one could not take the antidote within 3 minutes, the body would turn into a pool of black water. The primordial spirit would be completely destroyed and disappear. Immortal slaying had only appeared twice in the cultivation world for more than 100,000 years. Each time it appeared, several powerful figures would fall. There were no records of survivors. The nether king grass was not the material in the ancient recipe of immortal slaying. It should originally be the torch dragon grass. This grass needed to be nurtured in a cold place for 10,000 years before it could sprout. After another 10,000 years, it could be imagined how rare it was. However, after decades of research, Venerable Yuan Shan found that if the nether king grass replaced the torch dragon grass, the effect would be better. It could double the toxicity of immortal slaying. Venerable Yuan Shan was obsessed with refining poison. For him, nothing made him feel more ecstatic than refining a strange poison. Hundreds of eyes looked at the fiendish python at the same time. The disguised nether demon of Hades was not in a hurry. He stretched out his hand and a wooden box appeared in his hand. He slowly opened it. A strong miasma was emitted from the wooden box. In the blink of an eye, many cultivators around showed painful expressions. Some could not bear the erosion of the miasma. Venerable Yuan Shan was only a few meters away from the fiendish python. The little old man was not affected by the strong miasma at all. He even sniffed hard and enjoyed the smell of the miasma. Venerable Yuan Shan dealt with poisonous plants and demonic flowers all day long. His body had not only adapted to various poisons, but also cultivated a unique demonic spirit poison body. It could be said that he was immune to all poisons. There was a 5-inch-long brown withered grass lying in the wooden box. The front of the grass was very wide, and the leaf pattern on it was like a ferocious ghost face. Venerable Yuan Shan frowned slightly. Fellow Taoist, although this old man has never seen the nether king grass, I have looked through a lot of ancient books. According to the description and some vague pictures, this is not the nether king grass, but a kind of ghost king grass that grows on a dead star. This old man can't see that it is at least 3,000 years old. It can be regarded as a treasure. It is indeed a good thing, but compared with the nether king grass, it is nothing. This thing is useless to this old man. A chill appeared on the fiendish python's gloomy face. He did not expect this old man to be so knowledgeable. He actually knew what the nether king grass looked like. Oh? Is it? Isn't this the nether king grass? What a pity. The fiendish python pretended not to know and then put away the wooden box. There was a greedy look in the fiendish python's eyes. The smell of the true immortal soul grass in Venerable Yuan Shan's hand was too sweet. Every time the fiendish python smelled a trace of it, the devil chi in its body would become turbulent. It was as if a drug addict was enduring his addiction, but there was a bag of drugs in front of him. The fiendish python tried to restrain its impulse. The nether devil belonged to the highest race in the Hades, and it had already left the most primitive state of the Nether Ghost period. But at this moment, the fiendish python returned to that primitive state, because the smell of the false true immortal soul grass in Venerable Yuan Shan's hand was too tempting. The fiendish python had never seen such a powerful soul power before. Moreover, this soul power was pure without any support, without any consciousness and without any soul. It was at least the soul and primordial spirit of a cultivator. After swallowing this powerful soul power, the fiendish python's strength could jump a big realm, from a devil general to a great devil general, and even had a slight possibility of evolving into a devil king. If it could really do so, the combination realm cultivator was just a nonentity in front of the fiendish python. For a moment, the fiendish python almost lost consciousness and fell into a state of madness. If it were not for the devil thought attacking the devil core in time, the fiendish python would have rushed to the stage and killed Venerable Yuan Shan. The fiendish python was not afraid of Venerable Yuan Shan or the cultivators behind him. He was afraid of Ancestor Tianfeng, whose whereabouts he did not know. No matter how thirsty the fiendish python was, he did not dare to forget the real purpose of coming to the Tianfeng trading fair today, to kill Ancestor Tianfeng. Even if the fiendish python was extremely uncomfortable at this moment, like a drug addiction, he did not dare to lose his sense of propriety. The prince of Nether Clan, Sakyamappa, was so terrifying that the fiendish python trembled with fear in the black prison and did not dare to have a trace of resistance. Sakyamappa was the seventh son of the Lord of Nine Secluded Kingdom, and the patriarch of Nether Clan was Sakyamappa's mother. He was a devil king of Hades, who controlled an army of 10 billion nether ghosts and controlled the vast underworld star area of Nine Secluded Kingdom and Nether Domain. Sakyamappa only needed a glance to kill a small nether demon like the fiendish python. At the same time, he had 10 million ways to make the fiendish python suffer a fate worse than death. The fiendish python was really scared, so no matter how great the temptation was, it could not shake his mind. The fiendish python had to wait for Fail Yen and the other two to finish setting up the mini-sky 9 secluded formation. Once this nether array was activated, none of the people within it could escape. In order not to alarm Ancestor Tianfeng, Fail Yen and the other two had to slow down, so the speed of setting up the formation was relatively slow. More than 2 hours had passed, but the fiendish python still had not received the signal that the formation was completed. This was also the reason why the fiendish python had been patiently sitting under the stage and watching the exhibits since entering the high-end venue. Otherwise, he would have taken action long ago. On the other side of the front row, Wu Chanda of Earl House looked at the fiendish python from time to time. He had never seen this person before. When did the demon sect have such a person? At the same time, Chi Kuang also felt strange about Night Soul, who was sitting next to Wu Chanda. Before this, Chi Kuang did not know that there was such a person in the Earl House. Lord Night Soul, do you want to take action? Wu Chanda's eyes flashed with ruthlessness. He had long disliked Chi Kuang. Over the years, the Earl House had suffered a lot from the demon sect. However, the Earl House was not powerful enough to crush the demon sect, so Wu Chanda had been suppressing his anger. Now that he had the support of the Dark Knight, the force behind him, he could finally vent his anger. Wu Chanda narrowed his eyes and glanced at Chi Kuang. He thought to himself, "Humph, Chi Kuang, the demon sect should never have used assassins from the Dark Knight. You can't afford to provoke the Dark Knight. The Dark Knight spans across the 3 cultivation empires and every corner of the spiritual world. Who else could it be other than the Dark Knight? Don't worry. Another colleague is on his way. With him, our chances of success will increase several times. The person beside Chi Kuang is very strange. I can't see through him." Night Soul created an invisible shield around him, blocking out his voice completely. Only Chi Kuang could hear what he was saying. "Lord Night Soul, what is the star level of this colleague of yours? Wu Chanda asked curiously. 5-star. 5-star. Doesn't that mean his star level is higher than Lord Night Soul's? Wu Chanda gasped. What's so strange about his star level being higher than mine? There are many assassins with a star level higher than mine in the Dark Night. There are at least 800, if not 1,000. A 4-star assassin is nothing special. He's just a middle-level assassin in the Dark Night. Night Soul looked at Wu Chanda as if he had seen nothing. Chapter 601. Wu Chanda knew that the Dark Night was mysterious and powerful, but he didn't know that it was this powerful. In Wu Chanda's opinion, Night Soul was at least a high-ranking member of the Dark Night. He didn't expect there to be so many Dark Night assassins who were more powerful than Night Soul. Wu Chanda couldn't detect Night Soul's cultivation level at all. He himself was at the late stage of the Void Refinement Realm. Night Soul was at least at the peak of the Void Refinement Realm, but based on years of contact, Wu Chanda felt that Night Soul was most likely at the Form Synthesis Realm. Li Daochong sat in the back row and looked at Yi Feiyue and Huang Jiran expressionlessly. After observing them for a while, Li Daochong was sure that the two women weren't forced to be in the Thousand Insects group. Goddess Hong Yang seemed to be very familiar with one of the female cultivators from the Thousand Insect. Since there was nothing wrong with the two women, Li Daochong was relieved. The perfected immortal soul herb in Venerable Yuan Shanshan's hands was too expensive. Plus, he only wanted the Ghost King grass, so the transaction could only be delayed. After a few minutes, Venerable Yuan Shanshan had no choice but to walk down the stage. After the three powerhouses of the Dark Night arrived, the enthusiasm of the other cultivators decreased significantly. Fewer and fewer cultivators went on stage to display their goods. When it was Li Daochong's turn, he didn't go on stage and directly skipped over. Just like that, the high-end venue became the weakest venue in the entire Tianfeng trade fair. Soon, the sun set. Patriarch Tianfeng held a banquet to welcome the cultivators who were participating in the high-end trade fair, as usual. The banquet was set up in an independent hall on the 3rd floor. The layout of the banquet followed the layout of the ancient times. The seats were arranged according to the strength of the cultivators. Famous cultivators were naturally arranged to sit at the front, while those with weaker cultivations were arranged to sit at the back. Patriarch Tianfeng's disciples couldn't detect Li Daochong's aura concealment technique, so they only thought that he was a Yuanian cultivator. Therefore, Li Daochong was arranged to sit at the outermost table. Cherry Blossom Gauze couldn't detect his aura, and Silver Bottle didn't need to conceal her cultivation level. She was only a Yuanian cultivator to begin with. There were 100 tables. Li Daochong and the other two sat in the outermost circle, together with Boyazi and the others. Boyazi never thought that the Sky Peak Grandmaster would still remember the Spirit Cultivator City. They did not enter the high-end venue, but were still invited to participate in the banquet. To be remembered by a body integration cultivator like Patriarch Tianfeng was naturally a great honor for low-level cultivators. Boyazi had not completely calmed down from his excitement even when the banquet began. From time to time, he would toast to the other cultivators at the same table. Li Daochong looked at Boyazi's submissive manner with sympathy in his eyes. After hundreds of years in the Black Prison, this group of indigenous spirit cultivators' inferiority complex had already seeped deep into their bones. Out of the 4 big tables in the middle, 3 of them were occupied by the 3 heads of Black Prison. Heavenly Peak's old ancestor was sitting at a table in the center with more than 10 mysterious cultivators. The cultivation bases of these cultivators were not very high. They were only at the early or middle stage of the Void Refinement Realm. However, none of them were devil cultivators who often showed their faces in the Black Prison. However, Patriarch Tianfeng's attitude towards them was different from the others. It was obvious that these cultivators were trading partners that Patriarch Tianfeng valued. They were most likely from the three great cultivation empires. Otherwise, with Patriarch Tianfeng's strength and status, there was no need for him to value a few void refinement realm cultivators so much. The banquet was just a routine. It was a courtesy for Patriarch Tianfeng to thank the participants. There was no other meaning behind it. In the past, there would be a banquet every year. During the banquet, the cultivators could also trade. The rules of the banquet were naturally not low. More than half of the spiritual wine and spiritual dishes on the table were not seen normally. One of them was a spiritual fruit called the nine-cloud fruit. If an ordinary person ate it, they would be able to directly reach the qi gathering stage. If a cultivator ate it, it would increase the strength of their spirit body. If they ate it every day for 100 years, they would be able to form a spirit body without cultivating. Patriarch Tianfeng was not stingy. He understood the principle of giving up something to gain something. No matter how high the standard of the 1,000-person banquet was, how many spirit stones could it cost? However, the cultivators who were able to participate in the high-end banquet were all almighty experts. In their eyes, these high-grade spirit wines and spirit dishes were nothing. Even the immortal-grade spiritual meat and spiritual dishes were of little help to their cultivation. It was only enough to satisfy their appetite. Li Daochong originally had a huge appetite, but for some reason, when he looked at the table full of spiritual dishes, he did not feel any desire. It seemed that after his cultivation had increased by a large margin, his body's desire for food had greatly decreased. Cultivators could already abstain from eating, so it did not make any difference whether they ate or not. Li Daochong did not touch his chopsticks. Since he sat down, he had been observing the movements around him. When he came out of the banquet, Li Daochong felt a strange force. Although it was extremely weak, he still managed to catch it. This force was very similar to the force produced by the underworld array on the 13 Specter cherry blossom gauze. This strange force made Li Daochong feel that it was a little strange. But when he focused his attention on it, this force disappeared. Li Daochong frowned slightly. At this moment, a notification sounded in his sea of consciousness. Discovered underworld array. Danger. Discovered underworld array. Danger. Host, please leave immediately. Host, please leave immediately. The corner of Li Daochong's eyes twitched. He might have sensed wrongly, but the hot-blooded level-up device definitely could not be wrong. Yingsha, did you feel a strange force? Li Daochong transmitted his voice. Cherry Blossom Gauze looked at Li Daochong doubtfully. She then calmly probed and did not sense any abnormalities. She replied, no. Li Daochong's expression turned vigilant. If even Cherry Blossom Gauze could not sense it, the level of this underworld array was unimaginably high. It was no wonder that even Patriarch Tianfeng did not sense it. Cherry Blossom Gauze saw that Li Daochong's expression was not right and asked, "What's wrong? Is there something wrong?" "Someone is setting up an underworld array nearby," Li Daochong replied. "What?" Cherry Blossom Gauze's delicate body trembled. Shock appeared on her disguised face. Cherry Blossom Gauze currently had 70% to 80% of her peak strength. Her spirit was strong enough to travel tens of thousands of miles away. If there was an underworld array, it would be impossible for her not to sense it. However, Cherry Blossom Gauze firmly believed Li Daochong's words. She knew very well how strong Li Daochong had become after obtaining her spirit energy. If he said there was an underworld array, then there must be one. However, even she could not sense it. Just how strong was the person who set up the underworld array? Could it be that the netherworld race has chased us all the way here? Cherry Blossom Gauze's heart skipped a beat. After the battle with the 13 Specter, Cherry Blossom Gauze appeared to be unperturbed on the surface. However, in her heart, her fear of the netherworld race had never decreased. Cherry Blossom Gauze knew that Sakyamappa would not let her go. However, she did not expect it to be so soon. Just as Li Daochong and Cherry Blossom Gauze were conversing, a delicate shout came from the center of the banquet. Huomu, you're bullshitting. This extremely penetrating female voice carried a deep sound wave, instantly suppressing all the noise in the surroundings. Everyone was stunned for a moment and looked in the direction of the voice. They saw one of the 4 princesses of the Thousand Yin sect, Princess of Bailuo Zhu Bilian, looking coldly at the Hall Master of the Demon Sect's Hall Master, Flame Devil Huomu. Fellow Taoist Zhu, I personally saw you enter the Ghost Island in the prison Star Sea 3 days ago. You stayed there for several hours before leaving. Everyone in the Black Prison knows what is on the Ghost Island in the prison Star Sea. Is your Thousand Yin sect colluding with the Hades? As soon as he said this, the crowd went into an uproar. Zhu Bilian's face alternated between green and white. Her bulging chest heaved up and down. Huomu, your demon sect is the one colluding with the Hades. Zhu Bilian, Huomu has proof. You said that the demon sect is colluding with the Hades. Please show me your proof. Huomu smiled sinisterly. As he spoke, Huomu tossed out a projection spirit stone. Immediately, a huge spiritual screen appeared in the center of the hall. An immersive image was displayed on it. In the image, Zhu Bilian was flying on her sword at an extremely low altitude over the sea. Her speed was extremely fast, and the water was split into 2 by the powerful airflow. Not long after, Zhu Bilian entered the infamous Ghost Island in the Black Prison. She flew into the Ghost Island without any hesitation. Huomu immediately said, Zhu Bilian, what do you have to say? There are countless nether ghosts on the Ghost Island, and among them is the existence of the Grand Wizard Ghost. Because of the special space environment, it's almost the same as the Hades. We can't stay there for long. Even if our cultivation is high enough, because of the dense death chi, even a devil cultivator's strength will be greatly reduced. Even you, Zhu Bilian, can't fight against the Grand Wizard Ghost on the Ghost Island. However, after a few hours you came out of the Ghost Island unscathed. This will only wants to ask, what did you do when you stayed on the Ghost Island for a few hours? Many of the cultivators present didn't believe Huomu's words at first. However, after seeing the image, more than half of the cultivators' faces were filled with shock. They looked at Zhu Bilian with obvious hostility. There were always 2 voices in the Black Prison. One said that the final destination of cultivating the devil path was to become a member of the nether demons in the Hades. The other voice said that regardless of whether it was devil cultivators or ghost cultivators, they were just shortcuts to cultivation. They had nothing to do with the Hades. Ghosts cultivated ghosts, so how could they be cultivated by ghosts? Devil cultivators cultivated ghosts, so how could they be cultivated by ghosts? To put it simply, one side believed that they should submit to the Hades, while the other side believed that they shouldn't. However, most of them supported the latter view. They believed that there wasn't much difference between walking the devil path and walking the ghost path. Orthodox cultivation was truly going against the heavens. It was the same for devil cultivators and ghost cultivators. Going against the devil path was going against the ghost path and not submitting. Therefore, even in a chaotic star field like the Black Prison, they still had to go against the Hades. Colluding with the Hades was seen as a traitor who had sold his soul. Everyone, you can verify whether the image that Huomu released is fake or not. There are space-time lines on the projection stone, so it's easy to verify its authenticity. Huomu continued. Just as he finished speaking, dozens of divine senses probed over. One of the divine senses was overbearing and incomparably powerful. When the other divine senses came into contact with it, they would immediately avoid it. This divine sense was the divine sense that old ancestor Tianfeng released without any concealment. A few seconds later, shouldn't the Thousand Yin Gate give everyone an explanation? Old ancestor Tianfeng coldly snorted. Zhu Bilian's face was pale, and she was a little dumbfounded. Her heart was filled with mixed feelings. She felt like she was suffering in silence. She could only look at Sect Master Qian Yueling. 3 days ago, she did make a trip to the Ghost Island. However, that was because the Sect Master and Divine Sense Princess Mu Jiaojiao asked her to go. The purpose was for her to investigate the spatial node on the Ghost Island. Mu Jiaojiao had calculated that there was a high possibility of a spatial crack connecting to the Hades in the Black Prison. However, she didn't know the exact location. She needed more data before she could continue with her calculations. The only area that could affect the spatial fluctuations in the Black Prison was the Ghost Island in the Starry Prison Sea. Mu Jiaojiao believed that the spatial crack was transferred out from the Ghost Island. Baidu Search Dong 81 Chinese Network. No advertising message. Chapter 602. The spatial data that Zhu Billion brought back from the Ghost Island allowed Mu Jiaojiao to successfully deduce that the spatial crack connecting the Hades to the Black Prison was within the demon sect's territory. However, she was unable to deduce its exact location. Zhu Billion never thought that her careful actions would still be discovered by the demon sect and recorded. In the face of ironclad evidence, even if Zhu Billion had 1,000 mouths, she wouldn't be able to explain herself. Not only Zhu Billion, but Qian Yueling and Mu Jiaojiao's expressions were also very ugly. Mu Jiaojiao's millions of thoughts were running through her mind, but for some reason, a strange power was interfering with her calculations, causing her divine sense to become chaotic. The Thousand Een sect actually colluded with the Hades. I really didn't expect these female cultivators to be so despicable. It's fine if they don't want to be humans and become dogs, but they just have to be the dogs of ghosts. I suggest that we capture these female cultivators from the Thousand Een sect and interrogate them. They're going against the orthodox path. Many of the veteran cultivators in the banquet hall were indignant. The Thousand Een sect's situation immediately became very bad. Everyone, isn't it a bit too arbitrary to accuse the Thousand Een sect of colluding with the Hades just because our princess went to the Ghost Island once? Could it be that the Princess of Jadefall was the only one who went to the Ghost Island in the past few hundred years? Qian Yueling's voice was cold as she replied to Patriarch Tianfeng's question. I do not know if fellow Taoist Zhu is the only one who has gone there in the past few hundred years. However, going there at this juncture is very suspicious. All the cultivators in the Black Prison Star will only gather together during the Heaven Peak Trade Fair. Normally, they would all go about their own business. I do not even know where they are. Men, bring those female cultivators out. After saying that, Huomu suddenly gave the order. Not long after, a few demon sect disciples brought 3 female cultivators out. These 3 female cultivators were the Thousand Een sect's female cultivators that often appeared in the Black Prison City. Their cultivation was at the Yuanying middle stage, which wasn't very high, but they weren't some random dogs or cats either. Sect Master Qian, are these 3 people from your Thousand Een sect? Huomu asked Qian Yueling. Huomu, you dare to capture my Thousand Een Gates people for no reason? Are you representing the demon sect in declaring war against the Thousand Een Gate? Qian Yueling said sternly. Innocent arrest? Sect Master Qian, do you really not know, or are you pretending not to know? Hui Yao's eyes darkened. As he spoke, he inadvertently glanced at Demon Master Qi Kuang. The latter nodded slightly. When Huomu received the signal, he extended his hand and tapped on each of the 3 female cultivators, unlocking some kind of restriction. When the 3 women regained their freedom, they all revealed looks of panic. Speak. Tell me everything about the Thousand Een Gate scheme. Sect Master, I'm sorry. We can't do that. Hades can't be trusted. One of the female cultivators cried. His words seemed to have no cause or effect, but the meaning behind them was self-evident. What nonsense are you spouting? Qian Yueling shouted. Sect Master, you've treated me well. But today, you want us to set up a passage to Ghost Island and capture all the cultivators participating in the Sky Summit in one fell swoop. I really can't do it. Another female cultivator knelt on the ground and cried out with all her might. Qian Yueling was stunned. Mu Jiaojiao bit her lower lip. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't use her spiritual sense as usual. A powerful and strange force was firmly trapping her. What? A passage to Ghost Island? A cultivator stood up from his seat with a nervous expression. Everyone, there's no need to panic. The spatial array of the passage to Ghost Island was destroyed by my demon sect before it was completed. Huomu replied righteously. The tension in the surroundings immediately relaxed. Some of the more powerful cultivators were still worried. Tens of spiritual senses shot out and searched the 100-kilometer radius around the Black Hell Palace. When they didn't find anything strange, they relaxed. Old Ancestor Tianfeng's face was gloomy. As the founder of the Sky Summit Trade Fair, after hearing the words of the two female cultivators, he felt like he was being toyed with. Dao Friend Qian, this old man has never asked about the matters of the Black Prison. The conflicts between you all have nothing to do with this old man. But you actually dared to make a move on this old man's Sky Summit Trade Fair. Do you think this old man is easy to talk to? Although old Ancestor Tianfeng's voice was old, it was deep and powerful. At this moment, his voice was filled with anger. Senior Tianfeng, Yueling swears to the heavens that the Thousand Yin sect definitely did not collude with the Hades and did not set up any passage to Ghost Island. Qian Yueling's sea of consciousness shook violently. The blood in her chest churned. Just now, old Ancestor Tianfeng's voice had a strong vibration that almost caused her to suffer internal injuries. Not only that, old Ancestor Tianfeng's aura rushed over, causing Qian Yueling to be unable to breathe. Qian Yueling forced herself to take a breath before she could reply. You don't have to say anything. No matter what the matter is, let's talk about it after the Sky Summit Trade Fair ends. But for the next 2 days, your Thousand Yin sect should not run around. Just stay in this old man's black prison palace. Old Ancestor Tianfeng snorted coldly. A ray of light shot out from old Ancestor Tianfeng's hand. Qian Yueling's face turned serious. The spiritual qi in her body surged out violently. Like a frightened cat, her body exploded instantly. Qian Yueling did not expect old Ancestor Tianfeng to make a move just like that. She did not dare to hold back and used all her strength to resist. Bang! A dull sound rang out. There was no huge destructive force. Even the tables and chairs were not damaged in the slightest. However, Qian Yueling's body shook violently. Puff! She spat out a mouthful of blood and her face instantly turned pale. She had suffered serious internal injuries and was on the verge of collapsing. If not for Mu Jiaojiao, who was beside her supporting her in time, she would have fallen to the ground. Many of the cultivators present who knew Qian Yueling's strength revealed a look of shock. Qian Yueling's cultivation level might not be high and was only at the mid-stage void refinement realm. However, her combat power was invincible among those of the same level. In terms of cultivation level, Qian Yueling was the weakest among the 3 great leaders of Black Prison. Wu Chanda and Qi Kuang were both at the late-stage void refinement realm. However, in terms of combat power, Qian Yueling was the strongest. Wu Chanda had once fought with Qian Yueling. The two of them fought for a day and a night. In the end, Wu Chanda was unwilling to continue fighting and escaped. Although the outcome of the battle was not determined and Wu Chanda did not escape, there was no need to doubt Qian Yueling's strength. Many of the demonic cultivators of the Black Prison who were watching from afar thought that if the battle continued, it would only be a matter of time before Wu Chanda lost. It was also that battle that established the Thousand Yin sect's position as one of the 3 great leaders of Black Prison. No one dared to raise any objections. After so many years, Qian Yueling's strength had only increased. However, she was unable to withstand a casual attack from old ancestor Tian Feng. Qian Yueling immediately suffered internal injuries. Is this the strength of a body integration cultivator? Isn't that too monstrous? Some of the cultivators were inwardly shocked. Senior Tian Feng, you injured my sect leader just based on Huomu's one-sided statement. Isn't that a little too arbitrary? Mu Jiaojiao was furious. Arbitrary? Little girl, it's not up to you to judge what I do. I'm already being merciful by not killing you. Again? Gather? Huahuang Jie. By Huahua? Feed. Old ancestor Tian Feng was already very restrained. He was already being merciful by not killing them on the spot. This was also because the Thousand Yin sect had contributed a lot of spirit stones to the Tian Feng trade fair today. In addition, the Thousand Yin sect had reserved a huge sum of more than 10 billion high-grade spirit stones. Otherwise, old ancestor Tian Feng would not have casually attacked just now. It would be a piece of cake for him to destroy the entire Thousand Yin sect. The amount of resources that old ancestor Tian Feng consumed every time he cultivated was an astronomical figure. The Black Prison's Tian Feng trade fair was his main source of cultivation resources. Therefore, old ancestor Tian Feng placed great importance on the Tian Feng trade fair. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he would not break the balance of the trade fair. Even though his strength was outstanding and he could look down on the Black Prison, old ancestor Tian Feng knew the principle of amiability begets wealth. At his level, his temperament was already as stable as a mountain. The reason why old ancestor Tian Feng was angry was because someone actually dared to have ideas about the Tian Feng trade fair. This was old ancestor Tian Feng's reverse scale. Regardless of whether it was true or false, it would cause his anger to rise without reason. Senior Tian Feng, this junior respects you as a heavenly sovereign. I didn't expect you to be someone who bullies the weak. Jiao Jiao is here. Just hit her. Mu Jiaojiao saw through old ancestor Tian Feng's personality and said with righteous indignation. Old ancestor Tian Feng's eyes flashed. His hand moved. He did not plan to talk nonsense. Just as he was about to attack, a white-clothed young man sitting beside him suddenly said, Master, please calm down. Since this girl said that you bully the weak, let me teach her a lesson on your behalf. The young man who spoke was old ancestor Tian Feng's last disciple, Lu Qingyun. He was taken in by old ancestor Tian Feng 30 years ago. Lu Qingyun's talent was extremely high. In just 30 years, he had cultivated from a foundation establishment stage cultivator to an early void refinement stage cultivator. Such talent was enough to make him proud in the three great cultivation empires. Old ancestor Tian Feng loosened his grip and glanced at Lu Qingyun. Among all the disciples, he was the smartest one. His words gave old ancestor Tian Feng a great way out. Using the name of the strong to bully the weak was not a big deal on the Black Prison Star. But outside of the Black Prison Star, if those old fogies in the three great cultivation empires knew about it, they would definitely magnify this matter and ridicule old ancestor Tian Feng. Almost all the cultivators at old ancestor Tian Feng's table were cultivators from the three great cultivation empires who came to the Tian Feng trade fair to purchase items. Old ancestor Tian Feng did not dare to touch these cultivators. If they were to encounter danger, he would even risk his life to save them. There were a few cultivators with backgrounds that even old ancestor Tian Feng could not afford to offend. For example, old ancestor Tian Feng had to greet the buyer of the 9 Cauldrons Magical Treasure Company with a smile. The buyer's cultivation was not high. He was only an early void refinement stage cultivator. However, the 9 Cauldrons Magical Treasure Company was a giant cultivation company in the Kuan Empire. The CEO, Heavenly Sovereign 9 Cauldrons, was a peak unity stage cultivator. He was many times more powerful than old ancestor Tianfeng. He could send old ancestor Tianfeng flying to the Hades with a single slap. With these people around, old ancestor Tianfeng could not help but pay attention to his reputation. After all, he did not mainly mingle in the Black Prison. To put it bluntly, this place was left to him by those old fogies in the three great cultivation empires. Otherwise, he would not have had the chance. And that's good too. You can go. Old ancestor Tianfeng looked at Lu Qingyun with satisfaction. When the latter saw the satisfied expression on old ancestor Tianfeng's face, he was secretly delighted. After this matter, his master would definitely reward him. After obtaining permission, Lu Qingyun immediately stood up and walked in front of Mu Jiaojiao. Miss Mu, since you said that my master is bullying the weak, then I am not bullying the weak, right? Lu Qingyun looked at Mu Jiaojiao with a hint of greed in his eyes. Chapter 603. Mu Jiaojiao's reputation in the Black Prison was even higher than Qian Yueling's. Even many young disciples from the big clans of the three great cultivation empires hoped to become her dual cultivation partner. However, Mu Jiaojiao had never accepted any marriage proposal from any clan or individual. Lu Qingyun had long been drooling over Mu Jiaojiao. With his status, he was qualified. He had also mentioned this matter to old ancestor Tianfeng and wanted his master to propose marriage to the Thousand Yin sect. However, old ancestor Tianfeng was very opposed to Lu Qingyun's idea. He only told him that if he had the ability to take Mu Jiaojiao with him, he wouldn't object, but to become dual cultivation companions, he shouldn't even think about it. After all, the Thousand Yin Gate was made up of demonic cultivators. How could a dignified spirit cultivator be together with a demonic cultivator? Lu Qingyun naturally didn't dare to oppose old ancestor Tianfeng's idea. If old ancestor Tianfeng didn't appear, it would be difficult for him to even meet Mu Jiaojiao, let alone pursue her. Lu Qingyun was also very clear about his own status. The Thousand Yin sect wasn't easy to provoke. These women were all crazy. They had more or less been treated unfairly in the Black Prison. Some had even been humiliated and tortured. If he wanted to use force to conquer these women, it was absolutely impossible. Moreover, there was still Qian Yueling. Lu Qingyun's talent was considered to be above average, but against Qian Yueling, he had no chance of winning. None of the four princesses were easy to provoke. Even against Mu Jiaojiao, Lu Qingyun didn't have the confidence to win. In fact, if a void refinement cultivator wanted to become a dual cultivation partner with a female cultivator, the male cultivator had to be at least at the peak of the void refinement realm. Reaching the body integration realm was easier said than done. No matter how heaven-defying Lu Qingyun's talent was, at his current level, every step forward was as difficult as ascending the heavens. Therefore, Lu Qingyun could only put aside his thoughts about Mu Jiaojiao. Of course, Lu Qingyun's thoughts about Mu Jiaojiao weren't any romantic feelings. It was more of a desire for her beauty and the sense of accomplishment of conquering a powerful female cultivator. Today's matter gave Lu Qingyun hope of getting Mu Jiaojiao. The desire in his heart was growing bit by bit. Just as Lu Qingyun finished speaking, Huamu, who was at the side, fawned over Lu Qingyun. Fellow Taoist Lu, you are the last disciple of Patriarch Tianfeng. You have a noble status. The Thousand Yin Gate can be taken down by my demon sect. How can we let you do it? Lu Qingyun cursed the 18 generations of Huamu's ancestors in his heart. It wasn't easy for me to get a chance, and you just King dismissed it with a single sentence. Lu Qingyun glanced at Huamu from the corner of her eyes and said coldly, "This matter happened in Tianfeng, so it's a family matter of my Tianfeng Corporation. Since it's a family matter, wouldn't it be a joke to let an outsider do it? Your demon sect can be credited for exposing this matter, but there's no need for you to do it." Huomu was stunned for a moment. He hadn't expected Lu Qingyun to be so ungrateful. He glanced at Qi Kuang from the corner of his eyes. The latter glanced over and sent a voice transmission to Huomu's spiritual sea. Let him be. Old ancestor Tianfeng has heavily injured Qian Yueling, and we've already achieved our goal. There's no need to care about anything else. The Thousand Yin Gate can no longer cause any trouble. Let them struggle on their deathbed. Yes. Huomu immediately sent a voice transmission. Qian Yueling forcefully held her breath. Seeing Mu Jiaojiao's icy expression, as if she was about to explode, she hurriedly grabbed the latter's wrist and said, "Jiaojiao, don't force it." Mu Jiaojiao turned to look at Qian Yueling. "Sect Master, we've been set up. It's useless to say anything now. If we admit defeat, we'll only be completely suppressed. Rather than that, it's better to fight to the death. Perhaps there's still a way out. Otherwise, the Thousand Yin Gate will be finished here today." Qian Yueling stared at Mu Jiaojiao. She did not doubt the latter's words at all. Mu Jiaojiao was an innate psychic cultivator. Her divination abilities were so great that no psychic cultivator in Qian Yueling's 200 years of life could surpass her. Even psychic cultivators who were stronger than Mu Jiaojiao were not able to do so. "Divine Will Princess, my master has already said that your Thousand Yin Gate shouldn't run around for the next 2 days. Since your collusion with Hades the First is no small matter, I'll have to trouble you to stay in this cage for now. I promise that once the Sky Peak Trade Fair ends, I'll immediately investigate this matter. If I'm certain that the Thousand Yin Gate didn't collude with Hades, I'll definitely apologize to Sect Master Qian in person and give her a Rising Sun pill to heal her injuries." Lu Qingyun smiled as he looked at Mu Jiaojiao. As he spoke, Lu Qingyun took out a spirit magnetic cage from his storage ring. It was large enough to hold 12 people. When he took out the cage, a dark light flashed through Lu Qingyun's eyes. This spirit magnetic cage was originally used by him to capture spirit beasts and set up traps. Now it could be put to good use. There didn't seem to be anything special about this spirit magnetic cage, but its spirit magnetic field was extremely powerful. There were all kinds of spirit formation talismans attached to it. The energy was separated from high-grade spirit stones and then compressed into spirit energy blocks. There were a total of 7 spirit energy blocks. These high-grade spirit energy blocks were compressed from tens of thousands of spirit stones. It was enough to imprison spatial tempering cultivators. However, imprisonment was only one of the necessary uses of this spirit magnetic cage. After Lu Qingyun bought it, he asked a spirit formation master to add many level 17 spirit formations to it. One of the spirit formations was used for hallucinogenic anesthesia. Originally, it was used to hallucinate king-level spirit beasts after they were captured. This would make the king-level spirit beasts lose their minds and prevent any mistakes during the transportation process. At this moment, Lu Qingyun felt that his foresight was too great. As long as he imprisoned the female cultivators of the Thousand Yin sect, he would use the hallucinogenic spirit formation at the right time. At that time, Mu Jiaojiao would be at his mercy. Lu Qingyun, since Senior Tianfeng said that the Thousand Yin sect shouldn't leave the Black Prison Imperial Palace, we definitely won't leave. Why did you bring out this cage? Are you trying to imprison us? Mu Jiaojiao said coldly. Her breasts were heaving up and down violently. She was quite angry. "Miss Mu, please don't be angry. I have no intention of imprisoning you. This is just a precautionary measure. I naturally trust Miss Mu and sect leader Qian, but I can't say for the rest of your sect. There are too many people and too many people. The 3 female cultivators that the demon sect captured just now betrayed your sect. I can guarantee that this spirit magnetic cage is only restricting your movements, not imprisoning you," Lu Qingyun replied calmly. "Restricting our movements? Lu Qingyun, you just said that you can't be sure that the Thousand Yin sect is colluding with the Hades. Since that's the case, why are you imprisoning us?" Mu Jiaojiao argued. Miss Mu, I've already said that I have no choice but to do this. I hope that your sect can cooperate with me. With so many cultivators from the Black Prison Planet watching, what is there to be afraid of? Unless you have a guilty conscience. Lu Qingyun's smile deepened. Lu Qingyun, you don't need to say any more. The Thousand Een sect won't leave the Black Prison Imperial Palace before the truth comes to light. However, we won't enter this cage even if we die, Mu Jiaojiao said resolutely. Miss Mu, do you want me to capture you? Lu Qingyun saw that it was useless to say anything, and the smile on her face froze, and her expression turned cold. Capture you? With just you? Ha! Mu Jiaojiao glanced at Lu Qingyun in disdain and laughed out loud. Then, she continued, as long as Senior Tianfeng doesn't bully the weak, if you have the ability to capture me, I will stay inside as you wish. As soon as she said this, all the cultivators at the banquet revealed expressions of interest. They were just worried that there would be no one to liven things up with. Hearing this, it seemed that Mu Jiaojiao wanted to exchange blows with Lu Qingyun. The most mysterious person in the Thousand Een sect was the Divine Sense Princess, Mu Jiaojiao. No one in the Black Prison had ever seen her in action. However, there was a rumor that a mid-spatial refinement stage devil cultivator had a conflict with Mu Jiaojiao. In just a few seconds, that devil cultivator had gone mad. That devil cultivator was later captured by the demon sect and refined into a devil puppet. However, this rumor had never been confirmed. No one had seen it with their own eyes. The entire Black Prison was very curious about Mu Jiaojiao's strength. Fairy Mu, if that's the case, then I'll have to offend you. A faint smile appeared on Lu Qingyun's cold face. After saying this, Lu Qingyun was about to make a move. Suddenly, Mu Jiaojiao said, Wait. Lu Qingyun was a little confused. What? Fairy Mu, are you going back on your words? Mu Jiaojiao immediately said, Of course not. I just want to make things clear. If I can catch you, then I'll naturally enter the cage. What if I can't? Lu Qingyun suddenly smiled. Can't catch you? That's easy. There's no need to enter. All right. Mu Jiaojiao's beautiful eyes flashed. She was waiting for this sentence. Not only Lu Qingyun, but all the cultivators at the banquet also didn't realize that from the beginning, the entire conversation had been led to this moment by Mu Jiaojiao. Mu Jiaojiao's divine sense had been interfered with since the banquet started. That strange force field had always been there. However, this force field only interfered with Mu Jiaojiao's divine sense and high-speed calculations. Normal calculations could still be carried out. Therefore, Mu Jiaojiao easily lured Lu Qingyun into a trap and prevented the Thousand Een sect from clashing with Ancestor Tianfeng. As long as Ancestor Tianfeng didn't make a move, Mu Jiaojiao had at least a 70% chance of alleviating the Thousand Een sect's difficult situation. Mu Jiaojiao agreed. Just as she finished speaking, Ancestor Tianfeng waved his hand. All the banquet tables in the banquet hall automatically moved aside, creating an empty space in the middle. It was at least a few hundred square meters. Qingyun, don't embarrass this old man. Ancestor Tianfeng said solemnly. Yes, master. Lu Qingyun turned and bowed to Ancestor Tianfeng. Then, she said to Mu Jiaojiao, Fairy Mu, please. Mu Jiaojiao didn't say a word. Her divine sense had already turned into an invisible stretch of seawater that surged towards Lu Qingyun. At this moment, Li Daochong, who was sitting at the back, revealed a trace of shock in his pitch-black eyes. What a strong divine sense! Li Daochong had always thought that his divine sense was the most condensed. He didn't expect that there was someone else in this world who could reach this level. Li Daochong couldn't help but glance at Mu Jiaojiao. He didn't expect this woman to have such a strong divine sense. However, why did her divine sense seem a little unstable? Lu Qingyun was surprised. She clearly wanted to make a move, but she couldn't move. Mu Jiaojiao's divine sense instantly controlled Lu Qingyun's sea of consciousness. Heh! A few seconds later, Lu Qingyun let out a soft cry. His divine sense rippled, and in the next moment, Lu Qingyun regained his ability to move. Lu Qingyun shot out like lightning. The best way to deal with a cultivator was to engage in close combat. Even if a cultivator reached the body integration stage, their close combat ability was very limited. At most, they would be comparable to a cultivator at the peak divine transformation stage. Mu Jiaojiao was only at the early void refinement stage. No matter how strong her divine sense was, as long as she was in close combat, an early void refinement stage cultivator could kill her. Lu Qingyun was already prepared. He was very clear that Mu Jiaojiao would definitely use her divine sense to control him. Then, she would slowly erode his sea of consciousness. However, before she made her move, Lu Qingyun had already wrapped the core of her sea of consciousness tightly. In this way, not to mention Mu Jiaojiao, even Ancestor Tianfeng wouldn't be able to use his divine sense to hurt her. A void refinement stage cultivator's divine sense was already very strong. It could be separated from the body and roam the starry sky. It wouldn't be a problem for them to traverse the four seas without the support of a physical body. When a void refinement stage cultivator was on guard, it would be very difficult to use a pure divine sense attack to hurt them, unless one used a divine sense cultivation technique. Rumor had it that Mu Jiaojiao had used a divine sense cultivation technique, called demonic thought demonic slaughter, to kill a middle void refinement stage devil cultivator. Regardless of whether the rumor was true or not, Lu Qingyun had to be on guard. He stabilized his mind and activated several magic treasures that could resist divine sense attack. In the blink of an eye, Lu Qingyun appeared in front of Mu Jiaojiao. The former revealed a smug smile and raised her hand to grab Mu Jiaojiao's jade-like neck. The divine sense princess's divine sense isn't as powerful as the rumors say? How is she going to play when Lu Qingyun gets close to her? Rumors are just rumors after all. Most of them are exaggerated. Boring. I thought they would fight, but it ended before it even started. Many cultivators sitting at the table shook their heads. Princess, be careful. Murong Zhu's heart was in her throat. She couldn't help but shout. Jiao Jiao! Qian Yueling shouted anxiously. However, because of the anxiety, her injuries became more serious and blood kept flowing out of her mouth. Patriarch Tianfeng revealed a smug smile. Lu Qingyun didn't disappoint him. What divine sense princess? I think it's more appropriate to call her thoughtless princess. Senior Tianfeng, your disciple is not bad. A cultivator sitting at Patriarch Tianfeng's table snorted disdainfully. However, just when everyone thought that Mu Jiaojiao would be defeated in one move and would definitely be caught by Lu Qingyun, the situation suddenly changed. When Lu Qingyun stretched out her hand, she didn't see Mu Jiaojiao panic. Instead, the latter's gentle lips curled up slightly. The corner of Lu Qingyun's eyes twitched. She felt that something was wrong and used more strength. Slap! Lu Qingyun's hand landed firmly on Mu Jiaojiao's jade-like neck without any resistance. Lu Qingyun, who had a false alarm, felt relieved. She was being too careful. Fairy Mu, I caught you. You still have. Lu Qingyun said proudly. However, she stopped abruptly and froze on the spot. Ah! After a moment, Lu Qingyun let out a scream of horror. Bang! There was a muffled sound. Mu Jiaojiao didn't make any movements, but Lu Qingyun was hit hard and flew backward. Chapter 604. What? Patriarch Tianfeng muttered softly. Even he couldn't see how Mu Jiaojiao attacked. None of the thousands of cultivators present could see how Mu Jiaojiao attacked. Even the fiendish python and night soul were shocked. Li Daochong sat on his seat and touched his chin with a slight smile on his face. So it can be played like this? The only person who could see the clues was Li Daochong. Lu Qingyun flew back more than 20 meters and landed heavily on the ground. She felt that her brain was in a mess and she was dizzy. What? Lu Qingyun spat out a mouthful of acid. She felt as if she had spun violently on the spot for tens of thousands of times. She felt dizzy and nauseous. In addition, Lu Qingyun seemed to see a bottomless abyss for a moment and felt that she was almost sucked in. Mu Jiaojiao didn't give Lu Qingyun any chance to recover. She shot out a divine sense. Lu Qingyun screamed again. Whirlpools appeared in her eyes and she started to roll her eyes. Enough. Patriarch Tianfeng said in a deep voice when Lu Qingyun's body started to twitch. This seemingly simple voice instantly cut off Mu Jiaojiao's divine sense. Mu Jiaojiao's body shook and she almost got injured. Fortunately, she withdrew her divine sense quickly and didn't confront Patriarch Tianfeng head-on. Otherwise, she would have been injured. Mu Jiaojiao, it's just a spar. You want to kill him? What a ruthless woman. Patriarch Tianfeng said angrily. Senior Tianfeng, Lu Qingyun attacked my vital part. I was just defending myself. Don't tell me I should stand there and let him crush my neck? Mu Jiaojiao didn't decline. She was neither servile nor overbearing in front of Patriarch Tianfeng. She didn't retreat at all, but she didn't say anything that would provoke him. Even if you were defending yourself, you knocked Qingyun down. You've already won. Why do you still want to attack him a second time? What's your intention? Patriarch Tianfeng snorted. His turbid eyes shot out a ray of light as he stared at Mu Jiaojiao. It was as if he wanted to kill her with his gaze. Senior Tianfeng, I'm just a spiritual cultivator. Other than using spiritual sense to restrain my opponent, is there any other way? If I didn't attack a second time and your disciple attacked me again, I could only allow myself to be captured. How would I even have the strength to fight back? I didn't say that I would stop when the time was right. I was just trying to protect myself in a moment of desperation. Since Senior Tianfeng said that I won, does that mean that I won? Mu Jiaojiao's expression was calm as water as she faced old ancestor Tianfeng. The corners of old ancestor Tianfeng's eyes twitched. Only now did he realize that he seemed to have fallen into this lass's trap. However, even if old ancestor Tianfeng knew that he had fallen into a trap, there was nothing he could say to defend himself. With so many cultivators present, everyone had heard what he said just now. Denying in public was something that old ancestor Tianfeng would never do in his 8 lifetimes. No matter how angry old ancestor Tianfeng was, he had no choice but to reply, "That's right, you've won." Does that mean that the 1,000 gate doesn't need to enter the prison anymore? Mu Jiaojiao continued. Every word she said was leading the question to the final answer. It's just that you don't need to enter. It's not the 1,000 gate, cough cough. Just as Mu Jiaojiao finished speaking, Lu Qingyun's weak voice came from the side. Mu Jiaojiao's expression changed. Lu Qingyun, you want to deny it in public? Every cultivator present here heard the bet. Lu Qingyun clutched her head that was about to explode. Enduring the pain, she said, "Deny it? Fairy Mu, do you really not remember or are you just pretending? From the start, I was only talking about you. When did it involve the 1,000 gate? I didn't catch you. Since you agreed to the bet, you naturally don't need to enter the prison. However, that doesn't include the rest of the people from the 1,000 gate." Lu Qingyun's head was hurting so badly that her voice was trembling. If she hadn't eaten a calming pill, it would have been difficult for her to even stand. At this moment, Lu Qingyun finally felt how terrifying the spiritual princess was. She had underestimated her. If old ancestor Tianfeng hadn't intervened in time, even if she didn't die, she would have turned into an idiot. A cold light flashed in Mu Jiaojiao's eyes. Thinking back to their previous conversation, she actually didn't notice this detail. Mu Jiaojiao's heart sank. That strange force field that had been interfering with her was actually able to reach this level. She didn't even notice that her words were affected. Mu Jiaojiao's spiritual sense quickly circulated. Although the force field was still there, it wasn't enough to completely restrain Mu Jiaojiao. Lu Qingyun, do you dare to make another bet with me? Mu Jiaojiao suddenly said. Lu Qingyun had learned from her mistakes. How could she still have the mood to make another bet? However, she couldn't refuse in front of so many cultivators. If she did, wouldn't she be admitting that she didn't dare? Mu Jiaojiao paused for a moment. She glanced at old ancestor Tianfeng and sighed. Lu Qingyun, it's fine if you don't dare. However, it's a pity that Senior Tianfeng's divine ability is unparalleled. This junior respects him but accepted a useless disciple like you. Mu Jiaojiao's words were filled with disdain, but she was still flattering old ancestor Tianfeng. This made old ancestor Tianfeng unable to vent the anger in his heart. Mu Jiaojiao perfectly made use of old ancestor Tianfeng's weakness of not being able to bicker with her in front of everyone. Mu Jiaojiao was good at scheming and wasn't without flaws. As long as old ancestor Tianfeng didn't care about his face, he could immediately negate her next plan. However, Mu Jiaojiao was sure that old ancestor Tianfeng wouldn't be so shameless. Miss Mu, who said that I don't dare? What do you want to bet? Lu Qingyun immediately asked after receiving old ancestor Tianfeng's message. It's very simple. Let's bet that your 3 senior brothers won't be able to catch me, Mu Jiaojiao said seriously. When these words came out, all the cultivators in the banquet hall looked at Mu Jiaojiao in astonishment. Many cultivators looked at Mu Jiaojiao as if they were looking at an idiot. They felt that this woman must have gone crazy. She actually said such unreliable and arrogant words. Did water enter Mu Jiaojiao's brain? Does she think that she's invincible just because she defeated Lu Qingyun? That's right. Although Lu Qingyun is old ancestor Tianfeng's last disciple and is very strong, he's still the youngest and has only cultivated for 30 years. His talent might be the best among old ancestor Tianfeng's disciples, but his strength is the weakest. Each of his 3 senior brothers is more abnormal than the other. This Mu Jiaojiao really doesn't know when to stop. Sarcastic words came from all around. Lu Qingyun was stunned for a moment. He originally thought that Mu Jiaojiao was going to play some tricks again. He never thought that it would be this. Others might not know, but how could he not know the strength of his 3 senior brothers? Third senior brother Tiangangzi was at the mid-void refinement realm. He had cultivated an indestructible body. Not only was he immune to physical and magical attacks, even spiritual will would be greatly weakened when it was used on him. The heavenly dipper body had a chi aura that could resist spiritual will. Second senior brother Huiyazi was at the late void refinement realm. He had cultivated the yang fire, with jade starfire, and could burn a cultivation planet to ashes with just a wave of his hand. Eldest senior brother Feng Nanzi was at the peak void refinement realm. His heaven-devouring blade was superb. He could cut a planet in half with a slash of his blade. They just didn't hang around in the Black Prison. Otherwise, they wouldn't have become the 3 giants of the Black Prison. The reason why the Black Prison was a lawless area was that the space was chaotic and the spirit chi was thin. The inability to use teleportation spiritual arrays was just a superficial phenomenon. The real reason was that the resources here were scarce. The 3 cultivation empires didn't want to take care of it at all. No one was willing to do a losing deal. If the 3 cultivation empires really wanted to take care of it, they would have divided the Black Prison 800 years ago. However, it was easy to attack this place but difficult to control it. It was really difficult to go from one cultivation planet to another. Lu Qingyun suddenly looked up and laughed. Even though it was very strenuous to laugh and his head hurt, he still couldn't help but want to laugh. Then, he lowered his head and looked at Mu Jiaojiao as if she was an idiot. Fairy Mu, Since you have made such a request, I have to satisfy you. However, I can't make the decision for my 3 senior brothers. You have to ask them." As he spoke, Lu Qingyun's 3 senior brothers had already stood up. They had already been called out. If they didn't dare to accept, wouldn't they be the biggest joke in the world? The 3 of them walked into the arena. 3rd senior brother Tian Gongzi squinted his eyes and looked at Mu Jiaojiao as if he was looking at an ant. His eyes were filled with disdain and contempt. "Mu Jiaojiao, if the 3 of us fight you, people will say that we are bullying you with numbers. How about this, we 3 senior brothers will fight against your 1,000 insect. You can choose to fight one by one or all of you together. As long as one of you doesn't get caught, it will be considered your win and you won't have to enter the cage." Mu Jiaojiao didn't even think and said, "Okay." However, the faces of the 1,000 insects people were very heavy. If Qian Yueling wasn't injured, there might be some hope. But now, Qian Yueling was heavily injured and didn't have any battle strength. Although the 4 royal daughters were still here, they were still lacking compared to Qian Yueling. Among them, the divine sense royal daughter Mu Jiaojiao was the strongest. The other 3 were still inferior. Patriarch Tianfeng's 3 disciples were each more domineering than the other. The weakest one, Tian Gongzi, could basically sweep the entire black prison. How were they going to fight? When Mu Jiaojiao agreed, Goddess Hongyang became anxious. It was still fine for her. At most, she would be caught. But Yi Feiyue and Huang Jiran's cultivation were too low. They couldn't even touch a trace of void refinement cultivator's qi. Once they touched it, even if they didn't die, they would be crippled. Baidu Search Dong 81 Chinese Network. No advertisement. Chapter 605. Goddess Hongyang didn't expect that the 1,000 Yin Gate would cause such a huge trouble. She didn't know much about the Black Prison. She only knew that the 1,000 Yin Gate was very powerful here, and no one dared to provoke them. In Goddess Hongyang's opinion, it was safe to travel with the 1,000 Yin Gate. She didn't expect to encounter such a situation. Goddess Hongyang felt miserable. Even divine transformation realm cultivators in the Federation had to look up to her. Now, she had to fight with void refinement realm cultivators. How was she going to play? Was she going to be played to death? At this moment, no matter how much Goddess Hongyang struggled, it was useless. The 3 of them were wearing the 1,000 gauze clothes of the 1,000 Yin Gate. They were the members of the 1,000 Yin Gate. No one would believe them even if they said otherwise. If Yi Feiyue and Huang Jiran weren't protected by Goddess Hongyang, they wouldn't even be able to withstand the pressure of a void refinement realm cultivator. Tian Gangzi walked forward slowly with a faint smile on his face. "My 2 senior martial brothers and I will go one by one. You guys can do whatever you want." While speaking, Tian Gangzi no longer restrained his qi. In an instant, the void refinement realm pressure came crashing down. Apart from the 4 princesses, the other members of the 1,000 Yin Gate became tense. The qi and blood in the bodies of the female cultivators with lower cultivation levels tumbled, and they almost lost their balance. Fortunately, Qian Yueling had the support of the Dharma robe. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to withstand the pressure. Goddess Hongyang felt a strong impact on her mind. Yuanying, who was at his peak, couldn't withstand it at all. Mu Jiaojiao's beautiful eyes revealed a trace of loneliness. This was the best she could do. Unfortunately, in the face of absolute strength, all schemes and tricks were useless. Mu Jiaojiao naturally knew that Lu Qingyun's 3 senior martial brothers were powerful. They were definitely stronger than Lu Qingyun. However, she didn't expect them to be so powerful. Tian Gangzi's cultivation level was only a small realm higher than hers. However, the pressure that Tian Gangzi emitted made Mu Jiaojiao's mind tremble. Even if Qian Yueling released her full force, it wouldn't affect Mu Jiaojiao's mind. She still underestimated the strength of old ancestor Tian Feng's disciple. Jiao Jiao, if the four of us go together, we might have a chance. Zhu Bilian stood behind Mu Jiajiajiao's mind. Mu Jiaojiao remained silent, because she knew that numbers were useless. I'll fight alone. Mu Jiaojiao's eyes were filled with determination. Just as Mu Jiaojiao was about to step forward, Qian Yueling grabbed her hand. Jiaojiao, forget it. Just admit defeat. We'll just enter the cage. Qian Yueling transmitted her voice, her eyes filled with worry. Sect Master, once you enter, you won't be able to come out. Mu Jiaojiao gently pushed Qian Yueling's hand away. Qian Yueling looked at Mu Jiaojiao silently and didn't stop her. Mu Jiaojiao walked into the arena. Tian Gangzi looked at her mockingly and said, Fairy Mu, are you sure it's just you? Mu Jiaojiao's expression didn't change. Tian Gangzi, enough nonsense. Come. Tian Gangzi's eyes flashed. All right. As soon as his voice fell, Tian Gangzi's figure flashed, shooting out like lightning. The speed of a middle-stage void refinement realm cultivator had long exceeded the scope of common sense. Most of the cultivators present had no time to react, let alone see Tian Gangzi's movements clearly. Mu Jiaojiao's beautiful eyes widened, and a look of horror appeared on her face. Her divine sense surged out like an ocean. Tian Gangzi and Lu Qinyun were completely different. They were on the same level. Tian Gangzi's figure paused when he was 3 meters away from Mu Jiaojiao. Interesting. Tian Gangzi exclaimed softly. Mu Jiaojiao's divine sense actually successfully interfered with Tian Gangzi's movements. Tian Gangzi felt a majestic divine sense invade his sea of consciousness like a tsunami, violently attacking the world in his body. Divine Sense Princess, you live up to your reputation. You came at the right time. Tian Gangzi suddenly looked excited and praised her. The others were dumbfounded, not knowing what Tian Gangzi meant. Tian Gangzi didn't move from his spot, and a vortex appeared in his eyes. Boom! There was a loud bang in Mu Jiaojiao's sea of consciousness, and her delicate body trembled violently. In an instant, Mu Jiaojiao's divine sense was completely pushed back, and the backlash was extremely domineering. If Mu Jiaojiao hadn't been prepared in advance, she would have definitely been hit and her sea of consciousness would have been damaged. Demonic thoughts, demonic kill. Mu Jiaojiao's expression changed. She didn't dare to hold back and directly used her divine sense ability. It was rumored that this was a divine sense demonic art, but it wasn't. It was a divine ability that Mu Jiaojiao comprehended when she stepped into the void refinement stage. Demonic thoughts, demonic kill could induce the demonic thoughts in the depths of people's hearts to the greatest extent, making them unable to extricate themselves. Tian Gangzi's divine sense was as domineering as the Tian Gang cultivation method that he cultivated. It was like an ancient giant beast swallowing Mu Jiaojiao's divine sense. Just as Tian Gangzi was about to swallow Mu Jiaojiao in one fell swoop, his divine sense suddenly encountered a strong backlash. The vortex in Tian Gangzi's eyes became chaotic, and in an instant, countless abyss ghosts flew out from all directions and pounced on him. Tian Gangzi's divine sense was defeated and quickly retreated into his sea of consciousness, changing from the attacking side to the defending side. Mu Jiaojiao's divine sense was much stronger than Tian Gangzi's estimation. An early-stage void refinement stage cultivator's divine sense was actually at the late-stage void refinement stage, which was even stronger than Tian Gangzi's. Although Tian Gangzi's divine sense was strong, he wasn't a spiritual cultivator after all, and he didn't specialize in telekinesis attacks. For ordinary cultivators, divine sense was equivalent to the sixth sense and mental field. Of course, the higher the cultivation, the stronger the divine sense would be, and it would also have attack power. However, compared with the divine sense attack of a spiritual cultivator, this kind of attack power was like the difference between an ordinary person and a martial arts master. Ordinary people and martial arts masters had hands and feet, But the former had not been trained and had no strength, speed, or skills at all. They would be knocked down by a martial arts master in a face-to-face confrontation. Tian Gongzi's face darkened. After suffering the counterattack, he was a little annoyed. He was shocked just now and thought that he had gone mad. Fortunately, Tian Gongzi's reaction was fast enough, and he had the Tian Gangqi to protect his body, so he managed to defend himself. Mu Jiaojiao wanted to destroy Tian Gongzi's sea of consciousness in one go. Even if she couldn't completely destroy it and make him go mad, she could at least temporarily make Tian Gongzi's sea of consciousness chaotic and lose his combat power. However, when Mu Jiaojiao used her divine sense with all her strength, the interference force suddenly increased. Mu Jiaojiao had to be distracted to resist. Her divine sense suddenly became unstable, and her face was completely pale. It seemed that the burden was extremely heavy. Mu Jiaojiao was unwilling, but there was nothing she could do. If it weren't for the interference of this strange force, Tian Gongzi's sea of consciousness would have been messed up by her divine sense. Just a little bit more. On the other side, when Tian Gongzi thought that he couldn't hold on anymore, his sea of consciousness suddenly relaxed, and the pressure was greatly reduced. In a fight between masters, a little distraction was very likely to lead to a total loss. How could Tian Gongzi miss the opportunity? His eyes flashed, and he stepped on the ground and shot out like an arrow. Mu Jiaojiao looked horrified, but she couldn't move. It wasn't that she was imprisoned, but she didn't have the ability to dodge at all. Tian Gongzi punched out. There was a bang. Mu Jiaojiao flew back more than 10 meters and landed on the ground. She spat out a mouthful of blood, and her face was as pale as paper. The number of cultivators present who could feel the soul-stirring battle of divine senses could be counted on one hand. In the eyes of others, the whole process was a bit strange. Tian Gongzi disappeared on the spot, and then suddenly appeared 3 meters in front of Mu Jiaojiao. Then, the two stood still and faced each other. Then, a strange vortex appeared in Tian Gongzi's eyes. His expression looked a bit strange, and he even took a small step back. It seemed that Tian Gongzi had fallen for Mu Jiaojiao's trick, but a few seconds later, Tian Gongzi suddenly moved and punched Mu Jiaojiao's lower abdomen, sending her flying. Several female cultivators of the Thousand Een sect hurriedly ran forward and helped Mu Jiaojiao up. "Divine Sense Princess, are you okay?" a female cultivator asked anxiously. Mu Jiaojiao smiled bitterly and shook her head gently, indicating that she was fine. In fact, her internal organs had been injured to varying degrees. If it weren't for the protection of the profound heaven-grade robe, she would have fainted. However, just as the female cultivators were about to help Mu Jiaojiao back to her seat, they heard the sound of wind. Before the female cultivators could react, Tian Gongzi was already in front of them, his hands forming claws. Pa, his hands clawed down, and a few crisp sounds could be heard. Crack, 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 then there was the sound of bones cracking. The female cultivators groaned at the same time and collapsed on the ground. Their shoulder bones had been crushed in an instant. "Tian Gongzi, you!" Mu Jiaojiao shouted angrily. However, as soon as she said those words, the qi and blood in her body surged violently, and a mouthful of blood surged up to her throat. She forced herself not to spit it out. After a while, she said, "What do you mean?" Tian Gongzi looked down at Mu Jiaojiao. "What do I mean? Fairy Mu, have you forgotten the promise you made just now so quickly? I mean to capture you." Tian Gongzi's voice was still floating in the air, but he had already disappeared. The table that the Thousand Een sect was sitting on was sucked in by a powerful suction force. It was as if the entire table was grabbed by a huge hand, directly flying into the air, and landing in the middle of the empty space. The female cultivators of the Thousand Een sect, who were originally sitting among the crowd, now landed in the middle of the empty space. More than 10 female cultivators tried their best to hide the fear in their hearts under the watchful eyes of the crowd. However, they couldn't help but reveal a nervous expression. Tian Gongzi smiled sinisterly. With a wave of his hand, the table and chair were shattered into pieces. In an instant, only more than 10 female cultivators were left standing there. Goddess Hong Yang protected Yi Feiyue and Huang Jiran with all her might. As soon as she entered the arena, the void refinement realm aura pressure was overwhelming. Even for Goddess Hong Yang, it was already unbearable. The qi and blood in her body were surging violently. Yuanying, who was inside her body, almost knelt down. Yuanying was already in such a state despite being a peak cultivator. If Yi Feiyue and Huang Jiran were to be completely exposed to the aura pressure, the two of them would be severely injured in just a few seconds. Only the other 3 princesses of the Thousand Yin sect could barely put up a fight. The other female cultivators were completely powerless to resist. Just as Zhu Bilian was about to make a move, Tian Gongzi disappeared. In the next moment, he appeared behind her and struck with his palm. Zhu Bilian was directly sent flying into the spirit magnetic cage. She spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted right away. The other 2 princesses attacked at the same time. However, in front of Tian Gongzi, the 2 princesses were completely helpless. Tian Gongzi only used his qi force to send the 2 of them into the cage. Qian Yueling and Mu Jiaojiao were already severely injured. They could only watch as this scene unfolded. Sect leader, I'm sorry. Jiao Jiao miscalculated. Mu Jiaojiao's face revealed a distressed expression. It's not your fault. Qian Yueling shook her head. While the 2 of them were talking, Tian Gongzi sent 2 more female cultivators into the cage. Only Goddess Hong Yang was left protecting Yi Feiyue and Huang Jiran. Tian Gongzi glanced at the 3 of them with a strange expression. There's such trash in the Thousand Yin sect? Baidu Search Dong 81 Chinese Network. No advertising message. Chapter 606. The Thousand Yin sect was one of the 3 giants of the Black Prison. They had tens of thousands of disciples, and all of them were female cultivators above the Yuanying realm. It wasn't that they didn't have female cultivators of the Jin Dan realm, but they were all there to do odd jobs in the sect. Simply put, they were here to do manual labor. Although the Thousand Yin sect protected female cultivators in a certain sense and acted as the women's union of the Black Prison, its true identity was a sect and not a women's union. They would only help a portion of female cultivators who were willing to join the Thousand Yin sect or help a few lucky female cultivators who met with misfortune. The Thousand Yin sect's true purpose was to run their own sect. Normally, no one would be so bored as to go around upholding justice for female cultivators. At the end of the day, the Thousand Yin sect was no different from the other sects or cultivation companies in the Black Prison. The Thousand Yin sect's internal hierarchy was very strict. Jin Dan female cultivators were at the bottom of the pyramid and made up about 50% of the members. Although there were a lot of them, their use was very limited and their importance to the sect was also relatively low. After Tian Gongzi glanced at Yi Feiyue and Huang Jiran, he instantly detected the depth of their cultivation. One was at the Jin Dan realm and the other was at the Foundation establishment realm. With such cultivation, they could actually follow the sect master to participate in the Heaven Peak Trade Fair? Goddess Hong Yang was considered a peak expert in the Federation, but she wasn't enough in the Black Prison. Facing Tian Gongzi, Goddess Hong Yang's body couldn't help but tremble slightly. She didn't dare to look him in the eye. Not to mention Void Refinement Realm cultivators, even Soul Formation Realm cultivators were godlike existences in the Federation. Tian Gongzi didn't make any moves, but Goddess Hong Yang's mouth was already bleeding. She had suffered internal injuries. The pressure from Yi Feiyue and Huang Jiran was getting heavier and heavier. Goddess Hong Yang was almost unable to bear it. Sect Master Qian, is your Thousand Yin sect so lacking in people? You even took in such trash? Tian Gangzi looked at Qian Yueling and mocked. Snow Fairy Morongzhu was currently supporting Qian Yueling, her face pale. She was about to collapse from Tian Gangzi's pressure. This time, she had truly harmed her old friend, Goddess Hongyang. Qian Yueling clutched her chest and stared coldly at Tian Gangzi. She did not reply. Tian Gangzi smiled sinisterly as his aura burst out. Puff! Goddess Hongyang spat out a mouthful of blood. Fairy! Yi Feiyue cried out involuntarily as she supported her. At this moment, Huang Jiran no longer had the ability to move. It was as if a huge mountain was pressing down on him. Because Yi Feiyue's cultivation was much higher than Huang Jiran's, she still had the ability to move. However, the spiritual qi in her body was in a mess, like a mouse seeing a cat. But when Yi Feiyue came into contact with Goddess Hongyang, her entire body shook as an unimaginable pressure assaulted her. Goddess Hongyang wanted to remind Yi Feiyue not to touch her, but she couldn't speak. Crack, crack. Goddess Hongyang could clearly hear the crisp sounds of her bones being crushed. She could be crushed at any time. Goddess Hongyang, Yi Feiyue, and Huang Jiran's eyes were filled with despair. Just when Goddess Hongyang thought that she was going to die here today, she suddenly felt her body relax. The pressure rapidly weakened and soon disappeared. However, Tian Gangzi was clearly in front of her, and she was sure that he didn't restrain his aura. Tian Gangzi let out a soft cry of surprise, and a strange expression appeared on his square face. Who is it? Tian Gangzi's expression changed as he looked toward the seat. No one answered. The cultivators present were dumbfounded, not knowing why Tian Gangzi asked such a question. Tian Gangzi quickly searched with his divine sense, but he couldn't find the target. This invisible force that suddenly appeared completely blocked the pressure that Tian Gangzi deliberately emitted. Although the pressure on Goddess Hongyang and the other two was gone, the fear on their faces didn't lessen by much. It seemed that someone had secretly helped them, but what was the use of it? It was just to let them breathe for a while. The Void Refinement Realm cultivator in front of them called Tian Gangzi could crush the three of them with just a finger. Tian Gangzi couldn't find who secretly helped them and couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. He snorted coldly. Humph, coward. You want to be a hero and save the damsel in distress? Come out. There was no response from the seat. You don't want to come out? Fine, I'll strip these three female cultivators naked and hang them in the middle of the hall for thousands of people to admire. What do you think? Tian Gangzi revealed a sinister smile. Li Daochong's eyes flashed with a cold light and murderous intent rose. If it weren't for Cherry Blossom Gauze grabbing Li Daochong, Tian Gangzi would have been pressed to the ground. The situation is unclear now. Let me do it. Cherry Blossom Gauze transmitted her voice. Li Daochong glanced at Cherry Blossom Gauze and nodded slightly before replying. Be careful. It's best to cripple them directly. Cherry Blossom Gauze smiled and nodded slightly. As Tian Gangzi spoke, he reached out his hand to grab Goddess Hongyang. However, just as he was about to make a move, a sudden chill came from behind him. Tian Gangzi was shocked and subconsciously retracted his hand. He turned around and struck out with his palm. Bang! There was a muffled sound. Tian Gangzi hurriedly retreated more than 10 steps. A female cultivator in white appeared on the scene. Who are you? Tian Gangzi asked with surprise in his eyes. He was actually at a disadvantage after exchanging blows. Other than the sect masters of the Black Prison's 3 giants, Tian Gangzi believed that he had no opponents in the Black Prison. Cherry Blossom Gauze didn't even look at Tian Gangzi and walked to Qian Yueling under everyone's surprised gazes. She bowed and said, Sect Master, are you all right? In fact, Qian Yueling's suspicions were greater than anyone else's. That was because she didn't know who this female cultivator was at all. Mu Jiaojiao also looked at Cherry Blossom Gauze in confusion. A voice transmission sounded in Qian Yueling and Mu Jiaojiao's consciousness at the same time. My master asked me to help you guys. Let me temporarily be a disciple of the Thousand Yin sect. Qian Yueling and Mu Jiaojiao looked at each other and saw even more confusion in each other's eyes. The Thousand Yin sect was currently being accused of colluding with the Hades. Everyone was afraid of them, but there was still someone who wanted to help them? Was there such a good thing? Mu Jiaojiao didn't believe it at all. However, she didn't have a choice. Even if the other party had other motives, there was nothing she could do. However, she was sure that the other party was sincere in helping. This unfamiliar female cultivator had already exchanged blows with Tian Gangzi and even called her sect master in front of everyone. Why are you still here? Mu Jiaojiao reacted quickly and immediately acted as she reprimanded Cherry Blossom Gauze. Sigh 9, why do you have to do this? Qian Yueling sighed and said. The two women's words immediately made the surrounding cultivators understand. It turned out that the Thousand Yin sect still had a fish in the net hiding in the sea. But why hadn't they seen this female cultivator before? 9. You just joined our Thousand Yin sect, and you already encountered such a disaster. Qian Yueling wanted to say something but stopped. Sect Master, 9 is willing to advance and retreat with the sect, Cherry Blossom Gauze immediately said. So there was still a big fish hiding. Good, since she's here, let's catch her together. Tian Gangzi sneered. Goddess Hong Yang, Yi Feiyue, and Huang Jiran didn't know what was going on. They didn't know this female cultivator who suddenly appeared. Although Goddess Hong Yang had experienced the 13 Specter battle with Li Daochong, she didn't know that Li Daochong had subdued Wu Ho's Cherry Blossom Gauze. Moreover, Cherry Blossom Gauze's appearance had changed and was no longer the same as before. Therefore, Goddess Hong Yang didn't know that the female cultivator who suddenly appeared in front of her was Cherry Blossom Gauze. Baidu Search 81 Chinese Network. No advertising message. Chapter 607. Although Tian Gangzi was at a disadvantage in the exchange of blows just now, it was still a sneak attack in a situation where he was unprepared. Tian Gangzi didn't think that this unfamiliar female cultivator would be stronger than him, but she was definitely stronger than the 4 princesses. Tian Gangzi's aura erupted like a volcano as the heavenly dipper energy strengthened his body. Swoosh! Without any warning, Tian Gangzi shot out like a bolt of lightning. That female cultivator is done for. Tian Gangzi is really angry this time. How is he trying to capture her? He's clearly trying to kill her. Tian Gangzi's heavenly dipper energy is so strong that even the barrier created by old ancestor Tianfeng is trembling. Isn't that so? If it weren't for the barrier, we would have been caught in the crossfire too. The seated cultivators looked at the Cherry Blossom Gauze as if they were looking at a dead person. The female cultivators of the Thousand Yin sect were confused and worried. They were confused because they didn't know this female cultivator at all. They were worried because regardless of whether they knew her or not, this female cultivator was the last hope of the Thousand Yin sect. Tian Gangzi shot towards the Cherry Blossom Gauze like a bolt of lightning and punched towards the Cherry Blossom Gauze with his heavenly dipper energy. Cherry Blossom Gauze, who had recovered to 80% of her peak state, wouldn't put someone like Tian Gangzi in her eyes. Back in the Shenghua Federation, more than 10 Void Refinement Realm cultivators surrounded her and couldn't do anything to her, let alone a mere mid-stage Void Refinement Realm cultivator. At that time, if Cherry Blossom Gauze was ambushed by a Body Integration Realm cultivator, those Void Refinement Realm cultivators would be killed by her. Cherry Blossom Gauze couldn't use any underworld techniques and could only fight with her bare hands. Tian Gangzi revealed a sinister smile. He wasn't afraid of anyone in a head-on fight. In terms of cultivation, he was naturally inferior to his 2 senior brothers. However, his 2 senior brothers might not be a match for him in a head-on fight. Boom! Boom, boom, the fist and palm collided, creating a terrifying shockwave. If it weren't for the super barrier created by old ancestor Tianfeng, the entire Black Hell Palace would have been razed to the ground. Puff! Tian Gangzi spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes widened in disbelief as he flew backward like a cannonball. He crashed heavily into the protective barrier and suffered a second injury. At least a dozen bones in his body were broken. After landing on the ground, Tian Gangzi couldn't even stand up. It was as if his body was sealed by an extremely cold air. How could this be? Tian Gangzi was lying on the ground, his face deathly pale. The entire banquet hall was silent. Everyone looked at Cherry Blossom Gauze with their mouths wide open. They couldn't understand how a female cultivator they had never seen before could beat Tian Gangzi to the point that he couldn't stand up with just one move. Ancestor Tianfeng's face twitched slightly as his expression turned gloomy. The two outstanding disciples that he was proud of were easily pulled down from their high horse. As their master, the one with the most shame was him. Cherry Blossom Gauze appeared in front of Tian Gangzi in a flash, and stepped on his shoulder. Huiyazi and Feng Nanzi, who were standing at the side of the stage, looked at each other. Huiyazi immediately rushed out. A ball of flame shot towards Cherry Blossom Gauze. Before Cherry Blossom Gauze's foot could land, her eyes flashed and she turned around to face Huiyazi with her palm. Boom! The two palms collided. Cherry Blossom Gauze didn't move at all, while Huiyazi took 3 steps back. The flames on Huiyazi's body burned fiercely, and the flames soared into the sky. It was as if his entire body had been ignited. Humph! Third junior brother has already lost his ability to fight, and you still want to attack? You're courting death. Huiyazi coldly snorted and waved his hand. A ball of fire shot towards Cherry Blossom Gauze like a cannonball. Yang fire had a natural restraining effect on Cherry Blossom Gauze. Although it wasn't as terrifying as Yang lightning, it was still the natural enemy of all living beings in the Hades. Li Daochong, who was sitting behind the table, was slightly worried about Cherry Blossom Gauze's situation. Huiyazi's Yang fire seemed to be quite powerful. The heat emitted by the flames burned the protective barrier until it crackled. It was fine outside the barrier, but the female cultivators of the Thousand Een sect were having a hard time. Fortunately, Qian Yueling had summoned a spirit magnetic defensive magic treasure to protect all the female cultivators. Otherwise, the heat from Huiyazi's body alone would have been enough to burn them all to ashes. Cherry Blossom Gauze's heart skipped a beat. She was still a little afraid of Yang fire, but she couldn't care less. Seeing that the fireball was about to hit her, Cherry Blossom Gauze couldn't use her dark arts in front of everyone, nor could she release her dark chi. She could only block it with her bare hand. Boom! Cherry Blossom Gauze destroyed the fireball with a single palm. Huiyazi was surprised. He didn't think that his opponent would be able to destroy his fireball. The fireball shattered into pieces and disappeared. Cherry Blossom Gauze retracted her hand and placed it behind her back. A piercing pain shot through her palm. However, the pain was still bearable. Cherry Blossom Gauze subconsciously revealed a smile on her face. Compared to Li Daochong's Yang fire, this Yang fire was like heaven and earth. There was no way to compare at all. She immediately calmed down. Huiyazi was a little annoyed. He turned into a ball of flames and shot towards Cherry Blossom Gauze again. Because they were indoors, and this was old ancestor Tianfeng's beloved Black Hell Imperial Palace, Huiyazi was worried that he would use too much strength and break his master's treasure. Cherry Blossom Gauze also moved this time. She took 3 steps forward and suddenly jumped into the air and kicked out. Bang! Huiyazi's ball of flames was directly kicked away by Cherry Blossom Gauze. He heavily crashed into the barrier on the other side. Bang! The spirit magnetic field energy of the barrier became unstable under the violent impact. It flickered a few times. With a bang, the protective shield disappeared. This attack actually destroyed the barrier that old ancestor Tian Feng had put up. Instantly, a wave of heat spread out from the barrier. The tables nearby were instantly burned to ashes. Some of the cultivators were also covered in dust. Fortunately, old ancestor Tian Feng's reaction was fast enough. With a thought, a circular flying disc shot out. The moment the flying disc flew out, it immediately released another spirit magnetic field energy barrier. This time, it was even more solid than the previous one. Huiyazi fell heavily on the ground. However, he did not lose his ability to fight like Tian Gangzi. He did not stop for a moment and immediately stood up. The flames on his body became even more intense. **Huhu**. The flames turned from a faint green color to a deep green color. Huiyazi's eyes were filled with killing intent. No one knew what he was chanting. Old ancestor Tian Feng's face changed. "Stinking brat, are you trying to burn down this old man's black hell imperial palace?" However, old ancestor Tian Feng's voice was extremely soft. Only he could hear it. Hiss. Is Huiyazi trying to use his sacred art, fire cloud burning the heavens? Some of the demonic cultivators who knew what was going on sucked in a breath of cold air. Their faces were filled with fear. As they spoke, they directly stood up from their seats and prepared to run for their lives. The other cultivators who did not know what was going on felt that something was wrong and stood up as well. "Damned woman, I'll let you have a taste of my fire cloud burning the heavens." Huiyazi was defeated in front of everyone and lost all his face. At this moment, he was furious. However, at this moment, Cherry Blossom Gauze disappeared. Huiyazi was stunned. "You're too slow. This palace does not have the time to wait for you to use your fire cloud burning the heavens." Cherry Blossom Gauze's voice came from behind Huiyazi. Huiyazi was shocked. He immediately turned around and prepared to counterattack. However, it was already too late. Cherry Blossom Gauze struck out with her palm. It seemed casual and did not have much power. However, when this palm landed on Huiyazi's body, the latter felt like he was hit by a mountain and flew out. The flames on Huiyazi's body were also extinguished at this moment. He crashed into the protective barrier and rebounded to the ground, motionless. The banquet hall was silent. The female cultivators of the Thousand Een sect stared at Cherry Blossom Gauze with their mouths wide open. They were all stunned. The other demonic cultivators who were watching the battle were also dumbfounded. Huiyazi was defeated. How was this possible? That was a late void refinement stage cultivator. If they did not see it with their own eyes, they would not believe it. Baidu Search Dong 81 Chinese Network. No advertising message. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.